Chapter 2775. A large part of the reason why the sacrificial warriors were able to kill the life-devouring beasts in the large-scale battles before was because the life-devouring beasts were just too heavily injured. Their ability to devour life force could not keep up with the rate at which it was drained away. In the end, all the life force within them was forcefully drained, and they died. Although the life-devouring beasts that died like this still possessed some life force, which could be used to refine pills, its effects were naturally much worse than flesh and blood that possessed complete life force. However, primordial realm life-devouring beasts were different from godhood life-devouring beasts. There were plenty of godhood life-devouring beasts, so Genshin did not care whether a godhood life-devouring beast had enough life force or not. However, Genshin treated primordial realm life-devouring beasts like treasures, so he naturally wanted to preserve their life force as much as possible. It looks like I need to end the battle as soon as possible. Moreover, in order to prevent its life force from draining away too much, I can't let it suffer too many wounds. I need to injure it severely every time it's injured. Only then will I be able to kill it in the shortest amount of time possible, Genshin thought. He looked at the primordial realm, life-devouring beast's tail that had regrown. He knew that if he continued to cut off its tail, claw, and limb, it would become so crippled that it would not be able to use them anymore. The primordial realm life-devouring beast's regeneration ability was just too great. It could regrow its limbs in just a few seconds, but every time it did so, it would consume its life force. This was not the result that Genshin wanted. It looks like I can only use that move if I want to end the battle quickly. Genshin dodged the ball of energy that the primordial realm life-devouring beast spat out. His eyes suddenly sharpened, and a resplendent, silver-white sword chi slowly surged out from his right hand. The sword chi was no longer as simple as just sword chi. The power of ways circulated within it, gathering the power of strands of the laws of the sword. It was much more powerful than any of the attacks that Genshin had launched before. He gently swung the sword chi in his hand forward. With that, the sword chi in his hand vanished along with half of his arm. It was as if he had completely fused with space, becoming one with it. In the next moment, the primordial realm, life-devouring beast suddenly began to tremble violently. Its eyes were filled with pain, and it could not help but produce a heart-wrenching cry. Its colossal body fell to the ground loudly with a heavy thud, causing the ground to shake violently. Just as it fell to the ground, a dazzling white light suddenly shone from its huge body. The white light grew stronger from its body, as if it was trying to penetrate the life-sucking beast's powerful body from the inside. The primordial realm, life-devouring beast constantly cried out in pain as its huge body trembled violently. Powerful life force erupted from its body, enveloping it completely. It seemed like it had suffered extremely heavy injuries. This process only lasted for a few seconds. Finally, the dazzling white light from the life-devouring beast broke out. It was like the sun at dawn, shining brightly. Every single ray of light seemed to be composed of sharp blades. Wherever the light passed by, the primordial realm, life-devouring beast's tough body would be sliced apart. Immediately, the primordial realm, life-devouring beast's colossal body became riddled with holes as if it had been struck thousands of times. It was covered in wounds of various sizes. There were so many wounds that its body was on the verge of falling apart. Only a few pieces of flesh that were still connected to its body kept it from falling apart. This move was a secret technique that Genshin had comprehended himself, the shadowless lethal sword. The shadowless lethal sword was the result of the laws of the sword and the laws of space. It could ignore distance and obstructions, directly penetrating the enemy's body and attacking them from the inside out. The move was so powerful that Genshin had directly killed a 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime with the 9-star Sword of Heavenly Ways in the past. Although he no longer possessed the 9-star Sword of Heavenly Ways, and the power of the shadowless lethal sword had weakened, It was more than enough to deal with a third heavenly layer infinite prime. As a result, the primordial realm, life-devouring beast life, was hanging by a thread. It was basically on the brink of death. If it were not for its tenacious vitality, any other primordial realm expert probably would have died from such a powerful attack. However, in the next moment, the primordial realm, life-devouring beast struggled to its feet. Its body was surrounded by a dense life force. Under the cover of this life force, the injuries on its body were rapidly recovering. "I can't let you waste the life force like this," Jianqin murmured. He felt a faint sense of dizziness in his head. He understood that he could not use the shadowless, lethal sword too frequently. The more powerful a battle skill or secret technique was, the more energy it took to use it. Even Grand Primes would not be able to endure some peak god-tier battle skills. Since the shadowless lethal sword was so powerful, the price to use it would naturally be quite high. With a flash, Jianqin arrived before the primordial realm, life-devouring beast in a single moment. Powerful sword qi swept past its back. The primordial realm, life-devouring beast's body was already on the brink of collapse. Most of its flesh had been cut up, and it was only connected by a small amount of flesh. Now that Jianqin's attack had struck it, it was immediately cleaved in half. Jianqin's arm shook violently, and the sword condensed from sword qi suddenly shot out as a blur. It immediately cut the life-devouring beast's colossal lower half into several hundred pieces of flesh of various sizes. Afterwards, chaotic force shot out from his hand and sealed up the pieces of flesh, severing the connection between them so that the life force within could not leak away. At the same time, it prevented the pieces of flesh from reassembling. After the pieces of flesh were sealed up, the primordial realm, life-devouring beast immediately lost its ability to sense the pieces of flesh. This finally made it feel a sliver of fear, as well as fury. Suddenly, a strange fluctuation spread out. Under the threat of death, the tightly shut vertical eye at the center of its brows slowly opened. The vertical eye did not open very quickly, but as it did, a pulse of energy that completely exceeded the life-devouring beast's cultivation erupted from the eye. It turned its head, and its third eye immediately locked onto Jianqin. A streak of dark green light shot out with unimaginable speed. Jianqin immediately sensed a powerful binding force in the empty space. However, the binding force was nothing to him with his current battle prowess. Only the dark green pillar of light that shot towards him had piqued his interest. The power of this vertical eye is already equivalent to a fifth heavenly layer infinite prime. It's basically a heaven-defying trump card among the primordial realm. Jianqin waved his hand and shot out a strand of sword qi, dispersing the streak of dark green light. With his current battle prowess, he could kill sixth heavenly layer infinite primes, even without using the 9-star sword of heavenly ways. Attacks from fifth heavenly layer infinite primes were naturally unable to threaten him. After using this trump card, the primordial realm, life-devouring beast became haggard. Clearly, it had paid a great price to use this move. Jianqin used this opportunity and immediately attacked with his full strength. A strand of white sword qi swept past the life-devouring beast's forehead, cleaving the upper half of its body into two. The primordial realm, life-devouring beast had completely lost the ability to fight back now. Even its powerful life force was useless. It was unable to heal its wounds. This was because Jianqin's attacks were just too powerful. Every single strike was fatal. Its recovery rate was nowhere near as fast as Jianqin's destruction. Chapter 2776. Infinite primes are peak battle prowess in the world of the fallen beast, and there are only a handful of experts who can kill primordial realm, life-devouring beasts. I wonder how many primordial realm, life-devouring beasts have died to me? It's also possible that it's the first primordial realm, life-devouring beast to die in the world of the fallen beast. If that's really the case, its flesh and blood will truly be priceless in the outside world. Jianqin observed the tremendous pile of flesh and blood that filled an entire space ring with satisfaction as he secretly calculated. He did not lack wealth, as he had obtained the tremendous wealth of a peak sect when he destroyed the Gloomwater sect. Afterwards, the cloud plane fell into chaos. After that, he obtained a portion of the Four Symbols Alliance's wealth. As a matter of fact, Jianqin also obtained a portion of the resources in the space rings of the Grand Primes slain by his seniors. The resources of Grand Primes were so tremendous that regular cultivators could not even begin to imagine them. The heritage that a peak organization had accumulated over many years was also unbelievably vast. With so much wealth on Jianqin, even if it was used to support the Tianyuan family, it would be enough to last the Tianyuan family for several tens of thousand years. As a result, he did not lack cultivation resources or wealth. He did not plan on selling the flesh and blood of the primordial realm life-devouring beast. Instead, he planned on leaving it for the Tianyuan family. The value and rarity of pills refined from the flesh and blood of primordial realm life-devouring beasts went without saying. No organization would complain about having too many pills that could increase their effectiveness by 30%. However, I still need to clean up this battlefield. I need to disguise it as a battle between two primordial realm life-devouring beasts. Otherwise, if the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race discover the abnormalities here, they'll immediately realize that primordial realm experts have entered this place with their intelligence. If they become vigilant, it'll be detrimental to my plans. Jianqin scanned the battlefield that stretched for several dozen kilometers. The light in his eyes flickered a few times before he immediately began to clean up, arrange, and disguise the traces left behind by the laws of the sword. Moreover, he had forcefully disturbed the space there with his comprehension of the laws of space. As a result, even if the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race used their temporal reversal techniques, they would not be able to see anything. That was unless they were powerful chaotic primes or even grand primes. Only experts like that would be able to find some traces in the space that Jianqin had disrupted. Although it was unlikely for the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race to appear in the central region of Two World Mountain, Jianqin could not help but prepare for the worst. After cleaning up the battlefield, Jianqin carefully inspected it again. After confirming that he had not missed anything, he left the place. Several thousand kilometers away, the condor that Jianqin had subdued had already folded up its wings. It stood high on a tree as it stared in the direction of the battle between Jianqin and the primordial realm life-devouring beast, without blinking. As a late divine king, life-devouring beast king, the condor possessed a certain level of intelligence. It deeply understood the power of the primordial realm life-devouring beast. In its mind, the life-devouring beast was the ruler of the mountain forest, the ruler. It was a truly supreme existence, so powerful that it could not be defeated. Now that the human was engaged in an intense battle with the ruler of the mountain forest, the condor seemed to want to see whether the similarly powerful human was the ruler's opponent or not. However, due to the ruler's terrifying pressure, the condor was afraid of the ruler's terrifying pressure. As a result, the condor retreated to several thousand kilometers away out of fear of being affected or displeased by the ruler. Coupled with the fact that it was obstructed by layers of mist, it was unable to see anything on the battlefield. It could only sense the pulses of energy that were so powerful that it made its heart palpitate from afar. It could also hear the furious roars and even miserable cries from the ruler from time to time. "You actually haven't gone very far. Are you waiting here for my triumphant return?" Just as the condor focused on the battle between Jianqin and the primordial realm life-devouring beast, a rather familiar voice suddenly rang out from behind it. Immediately after, the eagle sensed that there was a person on its back without a sound. This person was Jianqin. Jianqin had used his wondrous laws of space to appear on the condor's back like he had teleported there. Jianqin's appearance seemed to scare the condor quite a bit. Its huge body suddenly shuddered, and the violent shuddering caused quite a few leaves on the tree below it to fall off. It almost lost its footing and fell down. Fortunately, it managed to flap its wings in time to stabilize itself. The eagle's head suddenly made a 180-degree turn. It stared at the living figure standing on its back. This human had returned, but the supreme ruler of this forest had not made a move. Although the eagle's intelligence was not high, it was not too stupid. The scene in front of it had already made it realize something, which made its heart tremble even more. Jian-Chun looked at the condor that had turned its head towards him and could not help but smile. "It looks like you're already used to being my mount. Whatever, I won't mistreat you. Once I leave here in a few days, I'll give you a great fortune." With that, Jian-Chun stomped his foot gently. The condor understood and immediately flapped its huge wings without any hesitation. It kicked up a fierce gust of wind and flew off into the distance. It was much more obedient than before. For the next few days, Jian-Chun rode the condor and hid in the shadows, continuing to clear obstacles for the group. He played the role of a guardian that no one knew about. Of course, he did not clear out all the life-sucking beasts along the way. He only cleared out some of the stronger ones that could slow down the group. In order to prevent the more vigilant members of the group from seeing through his disguise, he even took the initiative to release some of the weaker life-sucking beasts to reduce their suspicions. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. On this day, Jian-Chun, who was lying lazily on the condor's back with his eyes closed and resting, seemed to have discovered something. His eyes abruptly opened and his body shot up, staring into the distance with bright eyes. Every once in a while he would spread out his divine sense to scan the surroundings, observing if there were any life-sucking beasts that could pose a threat to the group. Just now, when he spread out his divine sense again, he discovered that the thick fog several million kilometers away had actually thinned out. This phenomenon immediately made Jian-Chun understand that they were about to leave Two World Mountain. This immediately made Jian-Chun extremely excited. He immediately used the law of space to leave this place. His body flickered through the forest, crossing 1,000,000 kilometers with every flicker. In just a few flashes, he had already appeared several million kilometers away, in the area where the thick fog had thinned out. In this area, Jian-Chun could clearly feel that the fog's influence on his divine sense was getting smaller and smaller. He immediately spread out his divine sense with all his might. In just a short moment, the range of his divine sense had already exceeded the limit of 10 million kilometers in the thick fog, reaching 15 million kilometers. And this was not the end. His divine sense continued to spread, covering an increasingly large area. 18 million kilometers, 20 million kilometers, 25 million kilometers, 30 million kilometers. In the end, Jian-Chun's divine sense reached its limit when it reached 38 million kilometers. Compared to when it was in the thick fog, it was almost 4 times stronger. Of course, this was not the limit of an infinite prime. The senses of a grand prime soul could easily envelop an entire plane or even surpass an entire plane. The divine sense of a chaotic prime could envelop an entire region, which was equivalent to a fifth of an entire plane. How large was a region? It was measured in hundreds of millions of kilometers, and that was just a unit of measurement. Although infinite primes were not as powerful as chaotic primes, the divine sense of an infinite prime was still able to envelop more than 40 million kilometers under normal circumstances. Moreover, Jia Che's soul was no ordinary soul. Chapter 2777. I wonder if the suppression of the senses of the soul only affects outsiders like us, or if it affects everyone, including the Dark Star race, Jian-Chun thought. Aside from that, the laws here don't have the smoothness they have in the saints' world when they circulate. If I fight here, the consumption of the power of laws will be half as great as when I was in the Two World Mountain. Jian-Chun closed his eyes and sensed the surroundings. He could not help but frown. The power of laws consumed the power of the soul. If he fought here, the consumption of the power of the soul would be much faster than outside. He discovered that the restriction on him had increased after leaving the Two-World Mountain. The 100 Saint City is actually here, 10 million kilometers away from the Two-World Mountain. Genshin finally discovered the 100 Saint City that the group behind him was searching for. He had learnt a little about the origins of the 100 Saint City from He-Chan before. It was a city that had been created by the combined efforts of many peak organizations in the Saints' world, expending tremendous wealth and resources. It had taken many years to construct. The city was the main base of the peak organizations in the world of the Fallen Beast. It was their only base of operations in the world of the Fallen Beast. Not only was it a shelter, but it was also a place for trading. Due to the unique environment of the world of the Fallen Beast, many rare items that could not be found in the Saints' world were produced. Some of the resources, there were even things that the peak clans of the Saints' world could not ignore. In particular, the flesh and blood of life-devouring beasts were extremely precious. By the same logic, there were many cultivation resources and various heavenly resources that the Dark Star race needed in the Saints' world. Many of these resources could not be produced in the world of the Fallen Beast. They could only be transported from the outside world. As a result, the 100 Saint City became a place for trading between the various races of the Saints' world and the Dark Star race. The people of the two worlds exchanged items here, taking what they needed. At this moment, when Genshin truly saw the 100 Saint City, he was slightly shocked. This was because the 100 Saint City was not as simple as a city. He could tell with a single glance that the city was actually a god artifact with the powerful senses of his soul. A divine artifact that had reached the pinnacle of low grade and was just a step away from becoming a medium grade divine artifact. If it were just a low quality god artifact, it would not have affected Genshin. What truly broadened his horizons was that the low quality god artifact in the 100 Saint City was actually forged from several 100,000 or even over 1,000,000 high quality and supreme quality saint artifacts. No, this was not because it was forged, but because it was pieced together and assembled. The majestic city gate of the 100 Saint City was a single supreme grade saint artifact just by the doorframe. As for the two huge door panels, each of them was a supreme grade divine artifact. The tower above the city gate was formed by over a dozen supreme quality saint artifacts connected together. Every single brick on the long wall was a high quality saint artifact. So many high-quality saint artifacts and supreme quality saint artifacts were linked together through a formation, allowing their powers to connect. They became a perfect whole, transforming into a god artifact. Of course, it was not a true god artifact. It just possessed all the power of a god artifact. The uncanny craftsmanship allowed the city, which had been assembled from so many saint artifacts, to fuse together perfectly. It was like a true whole without any flaws at all. It simply looked like a beautiful piece of art. With so many saint artifacts brought in from the outside world, as long as they are placed in an accurate location, the power of all the saint artifacts can be gathered together and transformed into a god artifact. What a huge arm and what an ingenious method of forging artifacts. The person who forged this city really has reached the peak of comprehension in forging artifacts. Genshin could not help but sigh in amazement. Under the circumstances where god artifacts cannot be brought in, they were actually able to create a divine city through such a method. He was filled with admiration. With the protection of such a powerful city, even if there were no primordial realm experts among the disciples of the various peak clans who came from the Saints' world, they would still be able to gain a certain amount of authority in the world that belonged to the Dark Star race through a city like this. However, the situation in the 100 Saint City was clearly rather bad right now. Genshin could clearly see the situation in the city through the senses of his soul from 10 million kilometers away. The 4 gates of the 100 Saint City were closed together. The city walls and the streets and alleys in the city were covered with blood. Many corpses of warriors were lying in pools of blood. There was no breath of life in them. Obviously, they had died. From their attire, These cultivators belonged to various large clans in the Saints' world. They had all been slain mercilessly, reduced to cold corpses. Groups of cultivators in black attire patrolled the streets of the city at all times. They were not humans, and all of them possessed a dark star between their eyebrows. To no surprise, these cultivators were from the Dark Star race. The entire 100 Saints city had already fallen into the hands of the Dark Star race. There were no more disciples from any large organizations. Only a few independent cultivators hid in fearfully. Clearly, these independent cultivators were not the targets of the Dark Star race. The Dark Star race has actually grasped a method to control the 100 Saint City, and they possess a primordial realm expert. It looks like it won't be easy for Jin Hong and the others to take back the city. It might even be impossible for them to take it back. Jianqin sighed inside. Even though the various large clans of the Saints' world had sent in many warriors of sacrifice, and the formation formed by them might possess the battle prowess of a primordial realm expert, he did not believe that they were enough to fend off the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race. There were differences in strength between primordial realm experts. The Dark Star race definitely possessed powerful primordial realm experts, while the formation formed by the warriors of sacrifice was equivalent to a few weak primordial realm experts at most. Without staying for too long, Jianqin withdrew the senses of his soul and returned to the Two-World Mountain. With a few flashes, he returned to the Eagle's Back. Since he had left the Two-World Mountain, he no longer needed them to lead the way. However, the group clearly was not out of danger yet. With their speed, it would take them another 2 or 3 days to make it out of here. I'm about to leave, but you've worked hard as my mount during this time. I once said that I would give you a fortuitous encounter when I leave, Jianqin said calmly as he stood on the eagle's back. He was completely unperturbed. Afterwards, he casually waved his hand, and a large clump of flesh flew out from his space ring. It arrived before the eagle under the protection of an invisible force. This was the flesh of a life-devouring beast, and it was no ordinary life-devouring beast. Instead, it was the primordial realm life-devouring beast he had killed before. Moreover, the flesh was no ordinary piece of flesh either. Instead, it came from the brain of a primordial realm life-devouring beast. This part of the brain was filthy for refining pills. It contained far too many impurities, so the presence of life was much less than other parts. It needed to be refined many times before it could be used. Chapter 2778. As it stared at the lump of flesh that hovered before it, it naturally knew how to understand. The giant condor naturally understood what this was. Its eyes were burning with passion, and its huge beak was constantly opening and closing. Saliva was already flowing out of its mouth. The flesh and blood of a primordial realm beast was not as simple as increasing its strength. Most importantly, it possessed a sliver of the true essence of the primordial realm. If it could absorb the sliver of the true essence of the primordial realm, it would not immediately break through to the next level of cultivation, but it would establish a firm foundation for breaking through to the next major realm of cultivation. The flesh and blood was equivalent to a door to the primordial realm to it. It could allow it to peer into the world and mysteries of the primordial realm. Although it might not actually break through, the one with the greatest chance of breaking through among all the life-devouring beast kings in Two-World Mountain would obviously be the existence that had peeked into the true essence of the primordial realm first. This was because life-devouring beasts were not fighters, nor were they cultivators in the outside world. They possessed a unique cultivation method and a method for breaking through. The eagle stared fixedly at the piece of flesh that Jianqin had tossed to it. Even though it was burning with desire, it was still itching to do so. He was already tempted, but he had some concerns. For a moment, he did not dare to consume the piece of flesh. Instead, he glanced back at Jianqin from time to time as surprise and uncertainty filled his face. Jianqin could tell that the flesh and blood from the primordial realm life-devouring beast's brain was just too precious. The eagle did not seem to believe that Jianchen would be willing to give something so precious to it, which was why it did not dare to eat it. It was as if it was afraid that it would misunderstand and consume the precious flesh by mistake, which would infuriate Jianchen. Jianchen broke into laughter when he saw this. The eagle's head was a little more nimble than he had imagined it to be. It could actually think so much. This is a special reward for you. Eat it. There's no need to be so cautious, Jianchen smiled gently. At the same time, he sent a mental pulse into the eagle's head. This way, it would be easier for the eagle to interpret his meaning. Suddenly, the eagle's eyes lit up. It let out a joyous cry and swallowed the meat in one gulp. Although it was the life-sucking beast king, which was equivalent to the late-stage divine king, it had yet to reach the pinnacle of this realm. This lump of flesh would push him to the pinnacle of his current realm in the shortest amount of time. If he took a step further, he would formally reach the primordial realm and become the supreme ruler of the world. After which, Jianchen's silhouette abruptly vanished from the back of the great condor. This time he had truly left the great condor that had been his mount for 2 years. In the future, they might never meet again. Although I have some understanding of the realm of the fallen beast, this understanding only shows the general framework of the world. Now that the 100-Saint City has changed, the situation in the realm of the fallen beast is naturally changing. It seems that I still need to find a cultivator who stays here for a long time to understand the situation in detail. Jianchen thought. He expanded the senses of his soul. Half of it enveloped Two-World Mountain, while the other half covered the region outside. He immediately discovered many cultivators within the range of his tremendous senses. There were Dark Star clansmen who lived in the realm of the fallen beast, as well as cultivators from other races who had come from the outside world. However, they were basically all engaged in an intense battle. Some of them fought against the life-sucking beast. They wanted to kill the life-sucking beast in the outskirts of Two-World Mountain for its flesh, while some of them fought against the Dark Star clansmen. Basically, all the people who hunted the life-sucking beast were independent cultivators or small organizations, and organizations that had no connection to the various peak clans that operated the 100-Saint City. Without any exception, the people who fought against the Dark Star clansmen were all people from the peak clans of the Saints' world. I've got it. Jianchen's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately vanished. He did not continue to protect the group. Firstly, he had already left Two-World Mountain, so he no longer needed them to lead the way. Secondly, the group was already close to leaving Two-World Mountain, and there were no powerful life-sucking beasts in the surroundings. Even if there were, they would be weaker and smaller life-sucking beasts. They would not pose any threat to the group. I'll go investigate the current situation of the world of the fallen beast first, and then I'll go find He-Chan-Chan and ask her about the Ice Goddess Hall, Jianchen thought. Through the laws of space, Jianchen moved as quickly as if he had teleported. With a few flashes, he had already arrived several million kilometers away. This was still within the range of Two-World Mountain, but it was only the outermost region. The mist in the air was extremely thin. Of course, the mist here was normal mist. It would not affect them no matter how much they breathed in. It would not be like the depths of Two-World Mountain. Jianchen hovered in the air. He took out a mask from his space ring and placed it on the ground. Ever since he put on the mask, his entire temperament had undergone an earth-shattering change. Not only that, even his figure and face had become completely unfamiliar. The mask was the one Mo Tianyan had left him in the past. The mask was extremely extraordinary. After wearing it, it could completely change a person's bearing and appearance. Even Grand Primes would struggle to see through it. Only 9th Heavenly Layer Grand Primes would be able to see through the mask. However, it just so happened that it did not possess the presence or pulses of energy of a god artifact at all. As a result, it was not considered a god artifact when it passed through the entrance of the world of the fallen beast, which was why Jianchen was able to bring it in without any obstructions. Jianchen turned into a vicious, middle-aged man through the mask. His face and forehead were both covered with claw marks from life-sucking beasts, which made him seem rather vicious. In particular, some cowardly people did not even dare to look him in the eye due to his sharp and bloodthirsty gaze. After transforming, Jianqin flew towards the 100 Saint City at a steady pace. Just when he had traveled 100 kilometers, the sounds of an intense battle rang out from up ahead. Over a dozen people from the Dark Star race were currently pursuing a few cultivators in uniform. These cultivators were clearly disciples of a peak clan in the Saints' world, but they were all covered in wounds and covered in blood. They were quite injured. There were only 8 of them. 2 of them were early Divine King, while the other 6 were all over gods. On the other hand, there were a total of 5 Divine King realm cultivators among the Dark Star people who pursued them, while the rest were late over gods. There were twice as many of them. The 8 disciples of the Peak clans fended off the attacks of the Dark Star people as they fled towards the depths of the Two-World Mountain. Outside the Two-World Mountain was the territory of the Dark Star race. It could be said that the Dark Star race controlled everything outside of the Two-World Mountain. If they wanted to survive, they could only enter the depths of the Two-World Mountain. Although the depths of the Two-World Mountain were filled with danger, there was still a chance of survival at the very least. It was better than dying outside. However, from their current condition, it was clearly very difficult for them to flee to the depths of the Two-World Mountain. Is the 6th Hall Master really going to kill us all? Your actions will only infuriate the clans behind us. Do you know how powerful our clans are in the Saints' world? Even Grand Primes will die if they offend our clans. You puny Dark Star people don't even have a chaotic prime. You're basically courting death by doing this to us. One of the pursued Divine Kings roared out furiously. His cultivation method was extremely extraordinary, and his battle skills were extremely powerful. He used countless secret techniques, blocking the attacks of the 3 Divine Kings by himself. These were the geniuses nurtured by the Peak clans of the Saints' world. Even though their battle prowess was not as great as the Supreme God Kings on the God King's throne, they were still experts among experts of the same level. He Qianchan of the Heavenly Crane Divine Hall, Ping Yixing of the Emperor Lotus Sword Sect, Sun Ji of the Sun Family, Guang Wanhua of the Crimson Light Clan, and so on. Many of the prodigies behind them were even more powerful than the Divine King. However, they were suppressed by the troublesome, life-devouring beast. Haha, don't try to scare us with the Saints' world. If the Grand Primes of your clans really have the ability, tell them to come to the Dark Star world for revenge. If the organization behind you had a Grand Exalt, our entire Dark Star race would definitely treat you as an esteemed guest, let alone the Hall Masters of the 10 Divine Halls. Even our great Dark Star Emperor would personally receive you. It's just a pity that you don't have a Grand Exalt behind you. Since you don't have a Grand Exalt, our Dark Star race is not afraid of you. Don't blame us. It was the 7th Hall Master's idea to kill you. We were only following orders. For the next 1,000 years, the entire Dark Star race will be managed by the 7th Hall Master. It's your fault for offending our 7th Hall Master. The Divine King experts of the Dark Star race all sneered. From their slightly disdainful gazes, it was as if they did not take the foreign organization seriously at all. This was because they understood that no foreign organization could threaten the Dark Star race in the Dark Star world, as the requirement to enter was that they could not be older than 1,000 years old. Just what level of cultivation could they reach in 1,000 years? Even the most monstrous prodigies would remain at the Divine King realm. Even if they really did break through to the primordial realm, the Dark Star race would not take them seriously. This was because the Dark Star race had more than one primordial realm expert. The Hall Masters of the 10 Divine Halls were all primordial realm experts. They even had the Dark Star Emperor, who had reached the peak of infinite prime. Only organizations with Grand Exalts could truly make the Dark Star race fear them. They would not dare to offend them and would even try to befriend them. This was because Grand Exalts could break through the senses and seals of the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit and Dark Star Grand Exalts. They could break through this prison with supreme might and allow the Dark Star race to see the light of day again. Do you outsiders really think you can act fearlessly in our Dark Star race just because you have 100 Saint City? Let me tell you the truth. You outsiders are just ants in our eyes. If we're in a bad mood, we can crush you to death however we want. If it weren't for the fact that you can bring us resources that can only be found in the outside world, how can we allow you to touch our sacred land? The final divine king of the Dark Star race said. He did not hide his mockery at all. In your eyes, we outsiders are just ants that you can pinch to death whenever you want to? Who dares to be so arrogant? At this moment, a heavy voice suddenly rang out from the depths of the mist. As soon as he finished speaking, a burly man dressed in animal skin broke through the fog. He maintained a low-altitude flying posture and soon appeared in front of both parties. He was a middle-aged man. He wore beast skins and was barehanded. There was a vicious wound on his face and forehead, and he gave off a valiant presence. He was Jianshin. Chapter 2779. In the Dark Star world, the people of the Dark Star race had never treated these outsiders seriously. They knew that the outsiders were very powerful in the Saints' world, so powerful that they could wipe out the entire Dark Star race with a single breath. However, as long as these people could not enter, they were just paper tigers no matter how powerful they were. As a result, in the eyes of the Dark Star race, the cultivators from the outside world were ants. They could crush them to death if they wanted to. They did not take them seriously at all. As a result, when Jianshin, disguised as a middle-aged man, provoked the Divine King of the Dark Star race, the Divine King immediately flew into a rage. Killing intent filled their eyes, and they did not hide it at all. How dare you, an independent cultivator from the outside world, provoke us? Are you tired of living? The Seventh Hall Master is magnanimous. He's already benevolent by not killing you independent cultivators and small groups. Yet you still dare to provoke us recklessly. This is a crime punishable by death. You cannot be forgiven. Immediately kneel down and kowtow before us to admit your wrongs, and we'll leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, we'll cut you into pieces and feed you to the life-devouring beast. The Divine King of the Dark Star race bellowed furiously. They looked at Jianshin as if he was already a dead man. The cultivator from the Peak organization, who was being pursued by the Dark Star race, seemed like a drowning person who had found a life-saving straw. His eyes were filled with joy. Although the 8 of them practiced extraordinary cultivation methods and grasped powerful battle skills, making their battle prowess extremely great, where one of them was an early divine king, they could take on 3 people at once. However, this was only temporary. At the same time, using these secret techniques and battle skills took an extremely great toll on them. They even had to pay a certain price. As time went on, they would be defeated in the end and die to the hands of the Dark Star race. Now that Jianshin had appeared, the cultivators from the outside world immediately saw a sliver of hope, especially when they sensed the Divine King's presence from Jianshin. This brother, we are Haojia's people. Please help us kill the enemy. Our Haojia will be very grateful. One of the Divine Kings, Haojia, immediately shouted. He had burned his essence blood to use a secret technique to fight 1 against 3, so he had expended a great deal of energy. The origin energy in his body had also been depleted, and he didn't have the time to absorb the energy within the divine crystals to recover. At this moment, he was on the verge of death. He wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer, even though his chances of victory were still slim with the addition of a Divine King. He could use a secret technique to heavily injure a Divine King as long as he could keep one of the Divine Kings busy. He could even kill one of them, which would increase their chances of escaping. Jianshin remained composed. He only looked at the 5 Divine Kings of the Dark Star race. He did not pay too much attention to Haojia's group. The reason why he had appeared was naturally to save these people. He had never heard of Haojia before. The Saints' world had 49 great plains and 81 great planets. Every single place possessed many peak organizations, and some peak organizations did not even establish their sects or clans in those places. Instead, they carved out a region in outer space and converted the planets into their base. As a result, there really were quite a few peak organizations in the Saints' world if they were added together. This was because as long as they possessed a single Grand Prime, they could be regarded as a peak organization. There were so many peak organizations, so it was impossible for Jianqin to know them all. When the Divine King of Haojia announced his identity, he felt rather proud because Haojia was a renowned existence across the entire Saints' world. There were very few people who did not know about him. Even in the 100 Saint City, where all the peak organizations of the Saints' world gathered, their Haojia possessed an important status. There were very few organizations that dared to disrespect them. As for the independent cultivators, all of them became extremely respectful when they heard that they were Haojia. They constantly tried to flatter them. However, when he looked back at Jianqin, he became surprised. This was because he did not see the surprise or shock on Jianqin's face that he had imagined. When they saw Jianqin's indifference, Haojia's group became rather surprised. However, he seemed to understand something soon afterwards. In the Saints' world, there were many organizations with the name Haojia. After all, the Saints' world was just too large, and there were just too many people. It was nothing strange to come across people with the same name. As a matter of fact, there were even some unrelated small organizations and large organizations with the same name in the Darkstar world. We are the Haojia of the Prosper Plane. If you assist us, we can even recommend you to join our Haojia once we get out of here. On the Prosper Plane, our Haojia is a supreme organization that stands above everyone else. The Divine King continued. He seemed to be afraid that an independent cultivator like Jianqin would not understand the strength of their Haojia, so he went into even more detail. Now that they were faced with death, he worked extremely hard to rope in Jianqin. Jianqin was originally indifferent, but when he heard the name Prosper Plane, he could not help but raise an eyebrow. He was extremely sensitive to the Prosper Plane because the heavenly palace of Bixing resided on the Prosper Plane. He still had a lot of merit in the heavenly palace of Bixing. Jianqin could not help but look at these people. Surprise filled his eyes. He had never thought that these people would actually be from the Prosper Plane. In that case, he would have to save them even if he did not want to. The Divine King of the Darkstar race became rather impatient. One of them called out, "You're about to die, yet you still have so much to say. Tasky, go kill him." Tasky was one of the 5 Divine Kings of the Darkstar race. With that, he immediately abandoned one of the Divine Kings of Haojia and charged towards Jianqin. The eyes of the Divine King of Haojia, who fought against 3 alone, lit up. The pressure on him decreased drastically. He immediately said to Jianqin secretly, "Brother, keep him busy for 15 minutes. As his voice faded, the aura on his body rose steadily, and his face became even paler. 15 minutes? There's no need." Jianqin shook his head gently. He could already tell that the Divine King of Haojia was burning the power of his soul. Clearly, he was determined to go all out. "Idiot! How dare you interfere with the matters of our Darkstar race? Once you die, I'll feed your corpse to the life-devouring beast." To the other side, Tasky had already arrived before Jianqin. He held a 1-meter-long spike and directly stabbed it towards Jianqin's forehead with pulses of energy. Jianqin did not dodge at all. Tasky's spike stabbed into Jianqin's forehead without any obstructions. Oh no, this independent cultivator is done for. Sai, why is he so weak? He's been killed in a single clash. It's over. I thought he could keep one of them busy, but he can't even withstand a single blow. The faces of Haojia's other Divine King and the Overgod disciples immediately darkened when they saw this. The sliver of hope that had just arisen was extinguished in the blink of an eye. Tasky secretly rejoiced as well. He really is an idiot. I thought he was powerful with the Divine King's cultivation, but he can't even withstand a single blow. However, Taski's face changed very soon. He was shocked. His spike did not penetrate Jinshin's forehead at all. Instead, he felt like he had stabbed into something tough. A powerful force rebounded from the spike, numbing his entire arm. How is this possible? Taski paled in fright when he saw Jinshin's unscathed head. However, Jinshin did not give him any time to react. He threw a punch. The punch possessed the laws of strength. It was vicious and unstoppable, causing the air to explode. Bang! Chapter 2780. A divine king, even an early divine king, could be regarded as an expert in the world of the fallen beast, where only infinite primes reigned supreme. Not only did Jinshin's great strength shock the people from Haojia's group, but even the 4 other divine kings from the Darkstar clan widened their eyes as they stared at Stark's headless corpse in disbelief. For a moment, they actually forgot to continue attacking the people from Haojia's group. Stark! Why? You killed Stark! Afterwards, the 4 divine king from the Darkstar clan returned to their senses. They were both surprised and furious as they called out at Jinshin. Stark's strength wasn't much different from theirs, but in the end he was completely annihilated with a single punch. He didn't even have the slightest ability to resist. Didn't this mean that if it was any of the 4 of them, they wouldn't have ended up well either? Immediately, Jinshin's great strength filled the 4 remaining divine king with fear. How is this person so powerful? He killed an early divine king with a single punch. Even late divine kings can't achieve something like that, but his presence is clearly only at mid-divine king. The divine kings from Haojia's group were extremely shocked. They could also kill early divine kings from the Darkstar clan in a one-on-one battle, but they definitely would not be able to do it as easily as Jinshin. Fantastic! We're saved! The 6 overgods from Haojia's group were extremely excited. If they had seen a sliver of hope to escape with Jinshin's appearance before, they saw hope for victory after Jinshin displayed his strength. They saw hope for killing the 4 divine kings from the Darkstar clan. Senior, please kill them. Our Haojia will definitely repay you generously, said a Haojia overgod. The expressions of the 4 divine kings from the Darkstar clan were extremely ugly. They looked at one another, and one of them immediately took out a jade talisman in an attempt to send a message and ask for reinforcements. However, Jinshin was even faster than he had imagined. Before he could even activate the jade talisman, Jinshin had already arrived before him. The laws of strength revolved around him as he directly threw a punch. Stop him! The divine kings from the Darkstar clan called out. At this moment, they could no longer pay any attention to the divine king from Haojia. All the divine kings immediately gathered together, and 3 of them struck out at the same time. 3 swords intersected as they slashed towards Jinshin with powerful pulses of energy. They covered their companions' call for reinforcements. Jinshin was clearly extremely familiar with the usage of the laws of strength. With a single punch, all the energy around him gathered on his fist. The punch was like a hot knife through butter, colliding with the 3 divine kings' swords fearlessly. Boom! 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 With 3 booms, the 3 high-quality god artifact swords were all knocked back by Jinshin. The great power from his punch even knocked the 3 divine kings a few steps back. After knocking back the 3 god kings, his punch did not stop there. It struck the Darkstar god king, who was about to call for help like a hot knife through butter. Spurt! Blood spurted from the mouth of the divine king as he was blown away. Although he was heavily injured, he did not die. This was because Jinshin was only acting as a mid-divine king. Every bit of strength he displayed had to match his current level of cultivation. If he continued to kill with a single strike, it would be a little too dazzling. Although the battle prowess he had displayed was no weaker than late divine king, it was still within an acceptable range. This was because it was normal for prodigies to possess the ability to fight above their level of cultivation in the saint's world. Jianqin stomped his foot and shot off like an arrow. He caught up to the divine king in a single instance and punched out again, shattering his head. The second divine king had been wiped out. In the blink of an eye, 2 divine kings had been wiped out. This shocked Hao Jia, who was burning the power of his soul to use a secret technique. The divine king could not help but become stunned. Afterwards, Jianqin struck out again and again. The presence of a mid-divine king erupted as the laws of strength revolved around him. He pushed his strength to the limit with each strike, and each punch would cause the air to explode. He killed another 2 divine kings with lightning speed. Only a few seconds had passed since Jianqin struck out. The series of battles had happened as quickly as lightning. The last divine king of the Darkstar clan was terrified. Fear filled his eyes as he turned around and fled without saying anything. "Where do you think you're going?" "Kill. Don't let a single one of them go." Hao Jia's 2 divine kings immediately chased after him and intercepted the last divine king of the Darkstar clan. Fighting 2 against 1, they killed the divine king of the Darkstar clan very soon. The overgods on both sides began to fight as well. Jianqin saw that the outcome had been decided, so he did not continue to fight. Instead, he stood with his arms crossed and looked in the direction of the 100 Saints city. He expanded the senses of his soul into the distance to observe the situation in the 100 Saints city. He secretly calculated, "Thank you for your assistance, brother. If it weren't for you, it would have been very difficult for us to survive," Jianqin said with a smile. At this moment, Hao Jia's 2 divine kings and the 6 overgods had all killed off the Darkstar clansmen. They all arrived before Jianqin to thank him. After a simple introduction, Jianqin learnt the names of the 2 divine kings. They were Hao Ran and Hao Qin. "May I ask for your name, brother? Since you're so strong, I'm sure you're not a nobody in the realm of the fallen beast." Hao Jia's 2 divine kings clasped their fists and asked. Hao Jia's 6 overgods stood beside them. They ate pills to heal as they studied Jianqin with curiosity and admiration. "I'm Gu Qi, a nameless independent cultivator." Jianqin casually made up a name. He glanced past the vicious wounds on Hao Ran and Hao Qin and said, "I've been hunting life-devouring beasts in the Two-World Mountain recently. I have no idea how many years it has been since I last came out. As soon as I came out today, I saw you fighting against the Darkstar clansmen, and I could sense the ripples of energy from the battle from time to time in the distance. Did something happen in the world of the fallen beast while I was in the Two-World Mountain?" Hao Ran and Hao Qin could not help but show admiration when they heard that Jianqin had been in the Two-World Mountain for many years. Even the 6 Hao Jias overgods behind them showed admiration. Chapter 2781. However, as soon as he thought about the strength Gu Qi had displayed when he killed the divine kings of the Darkstar race, Hao Jia and the 2 divine kings no longer found it strange. With Gu Qi's strength, as long as he did not venture into the depths of the Two-World Mountains, he basically would not be in any life-threatening danger. Even if he could not win, he could flee. Brother, Gu Qi has stayed in the Two-World Mountains for many years, so his understanding of the outside world is probably the same as it was in the past. The current world of the fallen beast, no, 100 Saint City, has indeed undergone a shocking change, said Hao Ran sternly. There was some grief and indignation in his voice. A shocking change? May I ask what's going on with the 100 Saint City? Jianqin was surprised. He acted like he knew everything. The 100 Saint City was originally created by the combined efforts of many peak organizations in our saints' world. It was a stronghold in the world of the fallen beast, but half a year ago, the Darkstar race suddenly launched an attack on our 100 Saint City, waging war against several dozen organizations in the city. The Darkstar race is a native expert here. Not only do they have many Divine King experts, but they even have a few Primordial Realm experts. As for us who have entered from the saints' world, we have to control our ages below 1,000 years. However, even among the peak organizations, the number of people who can reach divine king level in 1,000 years can be counted on one hand. As a result, even if we gather several dozen peak organizations in the world of the fallen beast, we will never be the Dark Star race's opponent. As a result, the 100 Saint City has already fallen into the hands of the Dark Star race. Haran let out a long sigh when he reached there. He looked in the direction of the 100 Saints City with great reluctance. If an organization like the Dark Star race existed in the Saints' world, they would not be taken seriously by Haojia at all. Any random great elder from the Haojia clan could wipe out the entire Dark Star race. However, this was the world of the fallen beast. Even if the Haojia clan was very powerful in the Saints' world, they were powerless against the Dark Star race. We've already sent people to ask for reinforcements half a year ago. I wonder when they'll arrive, said Haochin as he stared at the tunnel hidden in the depths of the two-world mountains. Reinforcement? Hearing that, Haran's face was filled with bitterness. He said with difficulty, the teleportation formation of the 100 Saints City has already fallen into the hands of the Dark Star race. Even the teleportation formations that lead to the other cities of the Dark Star race have all been shut down. Now, the teleportation formations in the Dark Star race can only be used to transfer between cities. There is no path that leads to the entrance. Even the few secret teleportation formations we set up have all been found and destroyed by the Dark Star race. Don't expect reinforcements. Has the world of the fallen beast become so dangerous now? Even large organizations like yours have ended up like this. It looks like I need to be careful in the future. I might not be weak, but I'll still die if I offend the Dark Star race, Genshin said. Senior, you just killed the Divine King of the Dark Star race. You've already offended the Dark Star race, so they definitely won't let you go. Senior, why don't you come with us? There's strength in numbers, said a Haojia overgod behind Haran. He was hopeful. She was a woman. Her hair was disheveled, and she was in a horrible shape. Her face was covered in blood and mud, so her appearance was no longer visible. However, her voice was clear and rather pleasant. That's different. Although I killed a member of the Dark Star race, there's no one else here aside from you who would know that I killed him. Genshin smiled. He did not seem to care at all. Afterwards, he looked at Haran and the others for a while and said, I don't think you'll leak this matter either. You must be joking, fellow Haojia. You've saved our lives. We Haojia people always act in an upright manner. We don't let down the world, we don't let down our ancestors, and we don't let down ourselves. How could we do something so ungrateful? Haran and Haran said seriously, Let's not talk about this anymore. The Divine King of the Dark Star race has died here, so I need to leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, it'll be bad if someone sees me. I've always been in the 100 Saints City before, but now that the city has fallen into the hands of the Dark Star race, I won't go there anymore, just in case something happens and I get involved. However, I've only been to the 100 Saints City in the world of the fallen beast, so I don't know anything about the other cities. Do you have a map of the world of the fallen beast? Can you explain the situation of the other cities to me? Genshin asked. Haran and Haran naturally had a map of the world of the fallen beast. As soon as they heard that Genshin needed one, they gave one to Genshin without any hesitation. At the same time, they recorded the situation of the world of the fallen beast in a jade slip and gave it to Genshin. In the end, Haran gave Genshin a space ring. There were over 1 million supreme, grade divine crystals and some heavenly resources in there, but Genshin declined. He left with the map of the world of the fallen beast. It's a pity that I didn't find any news about Mingdong. I wonder if Haran and Haran haven't been out in a long time, or if their status is too low, but they don't even know about Mingdong, Genshin thought. He maintained his presence as a mid-divine king as he flew close to the ground. As he flew at a low altitude, he checked the map and jade slip he had received from Haojia. The map and jade slip recorded a lot of information regarding the Dark Star race. There were a total of 38 cities on the map. Aside from the 100 holy cities, the remaining 37 cities were all under the control of the Dark Star race. They were divided into 36 main cities and one royal city. The 36 main cities formed a circle around the imperial city, which was located in the center. From the layout, it seemed to form a huge array. There were different numbers of towns and cities around each main city. The royal city, 36 main cities, and several hundred towns and cities of various sizes. This was the map of the entire Dark Star race. Of course, it did not include the 100 holy cities. From the jade slip, Jianqin gained an even more detailed understanding of the overall strength and authority of the Dark Star race. The Dark Star Emperor was a supreme existence within the Dark Star race. He controlled the entire Dark Star world and wielded absolute power over the lives of all the people of the Dark Star race. He was the indisputable ruler. Below the Dark Star Emperor were the 10 divine halls. The leaders of the 10 divine halls were figures only second to the Dark Star Emperor in the Dark Star world. Every single leader was an infinite prime. The Dark Star Emperor was basically a semi-recluse in the Dark Star world. He rarely interfered with the matters of the Dark Star world. Basically, all the matters of the Dark Star world were handled by the 10 divine halls. The authority of the 10 divine halls changed every 1,000 years. Every single divine hall had authority over the Dark Star world for 1,000 years. During that 1,000 years, the leader of the 7th hall would be in charge. The Jade Slip gave a rough introduction to the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star world. The Dark Star Emperor and the leaders of the 10 divine halls were not the only primordial realm experts in the Dark Star world. Some of the vice leaders were also primordial realm experts. As a matter of fact, some of the city lords of the 36 main cities had even become infinite primes. There were only 5 infinite primes on the Jade Slip. The remaining 31 city lords were all Divine King. At the end, there was an introduction to some of the Divine King in the Dark Star world, as well as a few danger zones. Jianqin became rather stern after reading through all that. The Dark Star race was much more powerful than he had imagined. Just the number of infinite primes they had was probably 20, and that was just a conservative estimate. No one knew whether the Jade Slip Haojia had recorded all the primordial realm experts. Jianqin did not pay any attention to the Divine King. He had comprehended the ultimate way of the sword. All those below the primordial realm were ants. If Siyu has been captured, he'll probably be in the royal capital. Jianshan locked onto the royal capital on the map. After disguising his presence, he immediately flew towards the nearest main city. The Dark Star world was not particularly large, but it was not small either. If he traveled at full speed, it would not take him very long to cross the entire Dark Star world. However, he had already arrived in the territory of the Dark Star race, so he needed to conceal himself carefully. Even if he was traveling, he could not expose his strength as a primordial realm expert. If he traveled as a mid-divine king, it would take him quite a lot of time. Chapter 2782. Dark Knight City was one of the 36 main cities of the Dark Star race. At the same time, it was the city closest to Jianqin. Jianqin finally approached the first city he saw after flying slowly for several hours as a mid-divine king. From afar, Dark Knight City did not seem too different from the cities in the Saint's world. It was surrounded by tall walls, and the old walls gave off the presence of time. This majestic city wall had already existed for who knows how many tens of thousands of years. In the distance, Jianqin flew over while maintaining an altitude of 100 meters. He stared at the ancient walls that were filled with the presence of time from afar. He understood that very few large-scale wars would erupt in the Dark Star world. For example, the invasion of cities that could be seen at any time in the Saints' world was basically impossible in the Dark Star race, where the Dark Star Emperor reigned over the entire world. As a result, the walls of the cities of the Dark Star race were basically only symbolic. They did not need to be damaged in battle. At the same time, there was quite a powerful energy within the walls. Although the energy was unable to give the walls extremely powerful defenses, it could prevent them from rotting away with the passage of time. As he approached Dark Night City, the number of cultivators in the surroundings gradually increased. However, most of them were cultivators from the Saints' world. They moved in and out of Dark Night City as if they were extremely busy. Jianqin had already learnt from Haochen and Haoren that all the cities of the Dark Star race prohibited cultivators from flying. As a result, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Jianqin landed several kilometers away from Dark Night City and made his way towards the city on foot. However, even with that being the case, he moved extremely quickly. He crossed 100 meters with each step, so he arrived at the gates of Dark Night City in just a short while. Stop! Which clan do you belong to? Why have you come to our Dark Night City? The guard stopped Jianqin. His gaze was extremely sharp as he spoke arrogantly. Even though he knew that Jianqin was a divine king, the guard, who was only an overgod, showed no fear at all. His words were rather provocative. This was because the Dark Star race had never taken the cultivators of the outside world seriously. Regardless of whether they belonged to a peak organization or not, they were the type that could be bullied at any time in their eyes. The reason why the Dark Star clan was so arrogant was because the cultivators from the outside world could never pose a threat to them. Jianqin didn't care about the guard's attitude. He cupped his fists with a smile and said politely, "My name is Jianqin Qi. I don't belong to any sect, just a rogue cultivator. Not long ago, I hunted some life-sucking beasts in the Two-World mountain range. This time, I came to Dark Night City specifically to sell the life-sucking beasts. I hope to sell them at a good price in exchange for some cultivation resources." Selling life-sucking beasts? Is that really the case? The guard's eyes lit up. His gaze immediately landed on Jianqin's space ring. He shouted, "Hand over your space ring. Let me see if there's anything wrong with it." "How can I show my space ring to just anyone?" Jianqin frowned as he sighed inside. He felt pity for the cultivators of the outside world. Even a mid-divine king would be troubled by an overgod guard as soon as he entered the city. In the world controlled by the Dark Star race, cultivators of the outside world really did not possess any status at all. "How dare you!" The guard called out, and powerful presences immediately surged out from within the walls. Several dozen guards, who were also overgods, surged out from within. They surrounded Jianqin aggressively as killing intent filled their eyes. They did not hide it at all. Many cultivators who were entering and leaving the city stopped and looked towards Jianqin. The cultivators from the outside world all showed sympathy, while the Dark Star clansmen seemed like they were watching a show. There was also some slight disdain. "Brother, you can't come into conflict with the people of the Dark Star race, or you'll definitely die. No one will be able to save you. Hand your space ring to them quickly and say some nice words. You have to be more humble, or it'll be very difficult for you." An old voice rang out in Jianqin's head. Without even using the senses of his soul, Jianqin knew that the person who had spoken to him was an old man behind him. He was a peak overgod, and he did not dare to approach them. Clearly, he respected the Dark Star race very much. "Senior, please calm down. You can't come into conflict with the Dark Star race." "Sir, the Dark Star race is currently under the control of the 7th Hall. The 7th Hall Master has always been biased against us from the Saints' world. You can't come into conflict with the Dark Star race at a time like this, or even if the Divine King is at his peak, he'll definitely die." A few more messages rang out in Jianqin's head after the old man. They all advised Jianqin to remain calm. Jianqin sighed deeply inside. The advice from the cultivators in the surroundings allowed him to understand even more about the situation of cultivators from the Saints' world in the Dark Star race. Not only was there no status to speak of, but they had even reached a miserable state where they needed to speak meekly and grovel for survival. Even Divine King experts were no different from ordinary people. Whatever. Jianchen removed his space ring and tossed it over. The space ring contained the corpses of 6 overgods and an early god-king life-sucking beast. He was currently disguised as a mid-divine king, so it was reasonable for him to kill an early divine king realm life-sucking beast. It did not stand out at all. The soldier accepted Jianchen's space ring and immediately sent the senses of his soul into it. When he discovered the corpses of the life-devouring beasts, he immediately became excited. There are actually 7 corpses of life-devouring beasts, and even the weakest one of them is an overgod. There's even a life-devouring beast that was at least a divine king when it was alive. Heavens, there are actually corpses of divine king-level life-devouring beasts. Corpses of such high-level life-devouring beasts usually only appear in the royal capital. It has already been 100 years since we've seen a corpse of a divine king-level life-devouring beast in Anya City. The soldier's eyes shone brightly, especially when he saw the corpse of the divine king-level life-devouring beast. Undisguised greed filled his eyes. The several dozen overgods in the surroundings saw his expression, and they all beamed with joy. There was also a sliver of eagerness on their faces. "What do you think, Xiaowei?" An overgod soldier could not help but ask. They had known each other for several hundred years, but this was the first time they had seen Xiaowei show such an expression. Xiaowei withdrew the senses of his soul from the space ring rather reluctantly. He beamed with joy and said excitedly, "It's a great harvest, a great harvest. It's equivalent to several hundred years of our salary, or even 1,000 years." "Really? That's fantastic." The soldiers around Jianchen were all overjoyed when they heard that. They seemed to have struck it rich. They were overjoyed. Jianchen sneered inside when he saw the expressions of the soldiers. He said to the soldier called Xiaowei, "Xiaowei has checked. Can I have the space ring now?" Xiaowei calmed himself down and looked at Jianchen. Afterwards, he took out a tail from Jianchen's space ring and tossed it to Jianchen. He said, "Take it. All right, you can go in now." With that, he stowed the space ring away. He had no plans of returning it to Jianchen. Jianchen looked at the tail of the overgod life-devouring beast in his hand and smiled resplendently. There are a total of 7 life-devouring beast corpses. 6 of them are overgods, and one of them is an early divine king. Just how valuable is that? In the end, I'm only left with a tail after entering the city once. Ha ha ha, what a joke! What a joke! The cultivators who watched from afar all shook their heads and sighed when they heard Jianchen's report. They all sympathized with Jianchen's situation very much. There were an extremely small number of people who resented him, but they did not dare to voice their anger. "What are you laughing at? Why don't you piss off into the city? Don't think you're so great just because you're a divine king. In the eyes of us, Dark Star, you divine kings from the outside world are nothing. You're just a slightly stronger grasshopper at most. We've already shown you mercy by leaving you with a tail. If you anger us, your head will hang on the walls tomorrow." Xiaowei pointed at Jianchen and scolded him without holding back at all. At the same time, 3 figures silently appeared on the walls, several dozen meters tall. They stood with their hands behind their backs as they stared down emotionlessly. Their gazes were extremely cold. 3 powerful presences radiated from them, firmly locking onto Jianchen below. Chapter 2783. He's actually at the mid-stage of the Divine King realm, and he can even kill an early-stage Divine King realm life-sucking beast. "This person isn't weak," said one of the 3 Divine Kings of the Dark Star race on the walls of Anya City. The person standing in the middle said expressionlessly, "The life-sucking beast of Two World Mountain was created by the remnant power of the wood's spirit races, supreme, sovereign, countless years ago. These beasts are extremely difficult to deal with, and they can actively devour the life force of cultivators whose cultivation is lower than theirs within a certain range. Even if they are at the same cultivation level, they will still be affected to a certain extent. Moreover, the life-sucking beast's body contains a terrifying amount of life force. As long as it is injured, its wounds will recover at an unbelievable speed. Therefore, when cultivators of the same cultivation level encounter a life-sucking beast, their only option is to flee. Even if they are a minor cultivation level higher than the life-sucking beast, it will still be extremely difficult to kill it. Since the person below can kill an early-stage Divine King Realm life-sucking beast, it means that his combat strength is very strong. He is unparalleled in terms of cultivation level, and he is unparalleled in terms of cultivation level, said the Divine King of the Darkstar race standing on the left. His eyes were fixed on Jianqin, and his expression was indifferent. The three of us are all early-stage Divine King Realm. If this guy causes trouble down there, it seems that even if the three of us work together, we won't be his match, said the third Divine King. Although he said that the three of them couldn't defeat Jianqin even if they worked together, a cold smile appeared on his face. He also didn't think much of Jianqin. So what if we can't defeat him? This is our city. There are many Divine King Realm experts in the city. As long as a battle breaks out here, a large number of Divine King Realm experts will immediately charge out of the city. At that time, even peak Divine Kings will be dead for sure, let alone mid-stage Divine Kings, said the Divine King in the middle. Yeah, let's see if this person fights or not. However, I do hope that he fights, as that way we can work together with the people in the city to kill him. There's actually a mid-Divine King Realm expert among the outsiders. It's time to clean them up. Otherwise, if they break through to infinite prime in our world, it'll be difficult to deal with them. The three Darkstar God Kings did not communicate with each other secretly, so they did not speak very loudly. However, all the people gathered here were godhood experts. Let alone a distance of 100 meters, even several thousand meters, or several tens of thousands of meters away would be able to hear them clearly. As a result, all the people gathered near the city gates heard what the three Divine King Realm experts said clearly. Immediately, the expressions of the outsiders changed. Sir, calm down. You must calm down. Just give them the corpse of the life-devouring beast. Don't say anything. Senior, you may be very powerful, but this is the territory of the Darkstar race after all. Even a powerful dragon cannot defeat a snake in its old haunts. Don't come into conflict with them over these worldly possessions. It's not worth it, sir. This isn't the 100 Saint City. Aside from the 100 Saint City, we have to show some respect to the people of the Darkstar race in any other city. We can't fight them head-on. Messages rang out in Jianqin's head again. The cultivators in the surroundings all tried to persuade him. All of them feared the Darkstar race very much. They did not dare to offend them at all, let alone offending them. Jianqin struggled to imagine that some of them belonged to large sects and clans in the saints' world from how fearful they were. This was because only a small portion of the cultivators who had entered the world of the fallen beast were independent cultivators. Most of them were people with powerful backgrounds. However, their backgrounds were nowhere close to Jin Hong's group. After all, Jin Hong's group all had peak organizations with grand primes behind them. Some of them even had more than one. The organizations behind them were probably only at the level of chaotic primes or infinite primes. Jianqin naturally would not swallow this. Moreover, his current identity was fake, and his strength was not particularly outstanding. He was not afraid of anything at all with this fake identity. He truly had nothing to fear. He suddenly looked at the city walls 100 meters above. He stared at the three Divine King and said, "It looks like you're also interested in my possessions. What you said earlier should have been directed at me as well. You're basically telling me to give up on the idea of taking back my possessions, because once I start a conflict here, if the three of you aren't my opponent, there will definitely be other Divine Kings in the city who will come to reinforce me. Once more Divine Kings come, there will be more people to split. Even if you manage to obtain the life-devouring beast's corpse in the end, you'll only be able to obtain a small portion in the end. However, if you obtain the life-devouring beast's corpse without fighting, you'll be able to obtain a larger portion with fewer people. Sirs, may I ask if I'm right? Genshin was not speaking without thinking. He was a primordial realm expert, after all, so his senses were extremely sharp. He could clearly sense that the 3 divine kings on the city walls were extremely excited, even though they seemed calm on the surface, when they heard about the corpse of the divine king. Immediately, the area near the city gates fell silent. Only the heavy presences of the 3 divine kings permeated the air, making the atmosphere extremely heavy. A few people who passed through Dark Knight City, whether they were cultivators from the outside world or Darkstar clansmen, stopped at that moment. They all watched from a safe distance. The 3 divine kings did not speak immediately after Genshin said that. They stared at Genshin coldly, and their gazes were even more terrifying than before. There was even faint, killing intent in their gazes. That was indeed what they were thinking, as the life-devouring beast on the level of a divine king was far more tempting to them than Genshin had imagined. Now that Genshin had seen through their thoughts, they were extremely displeased. I'll give you 2 options. The first option is to take back your space ring, and you'll die here today. The second option is to leave behind the space ring and enter the city with the tail in your hand. If you do that, nothing will happen to you today, and you'll be fine in the future. A while later, one of the divine kings said coldly, "Ha ha ha! I, Gucci, am a mid-divine king after all. How can I be threatened by you? The space ring was mine in the first place, and the life-devouring beast was something I spent a tremendous amount of effort to kill. I obviously have to take it back. I'll give you 2 options now as well. The first option is to take my space ring, but at the very least, one of you will die today. Of course, if you're too weak, it's not impossible for all of you to die before reinforcements arrive." Chapter 2784. Miao Wei was only an overgod. Even though he had the space ring in his hand, it was impossible for him to protect it before a primordial realm expert, like Genshin. He only felt his hand suddenly become empty. He did not even understand how the space ring had been taken away. Big butts! How dare you steal something from me in front of so many people? Do you want to die? Miao Wei was furious. He bellowed at a mid-divine king expert with his cultivation as an overgod. He showed no respect at all. This was only because he was a clansman of the Darkstar clan, and this world was completely under the rule of the Darkstar clan. As a result, Miao Wei was not the only one. Basically, all the clansmen of the Darkstar clan would not show any respect to cultivators. This belongs to me in the first place. I'm just returning it to its rightful owner, so why is it yours now? You're just a puny overgod, yet you're ordering me around. I think you're the one who wants to die, said Miao Wei coldly. He glanced at Miao Wei emotionlessly as a sliver of killing intent appeared in his eyes. Suddenly, 3 powerful presences crushed down. The 3 overgods on the walls all flew down. Their gazes were cold as they surrounded Genshin in a triangular formation. One of them growled, "I'll give you one last chance. Leave behind the space ring, and you can leave. It's much easier for you cultivators of the outside world to kill these life-devouring beasts compared to us, Darkstar clansmen. With your cultivation as a mid-divine king, killing an early divine king life-devouring beast is nothing difficult. Why do you have to lose your life for something so trivial?" The 3 of them still held onto a sliver of hope that they could persuade Genshin. Otherwise, once they drew in even more people, they would not be able to obtain much even if they obtained the space ring. The ones who are going to lose their lives are you, not me. Genshin had already lost his patience. His eyes suddenly became cold as he sneered faintly. There was a sliver of mockery in his smile. He did not waste any more words. The laws of strength revolved around him as he directly threw a punch at a god king from the Darkstar clan. The punch was simple and ordinary, but it possessed the mysteries of the laws of strength. It was so powerful that even the air exploded with the punch. It was like a thunderclap. The 3 divine kings of the Darkstar clan were already prepared. They had been accumulating power since they had left the walls, ready to strike at any time. As a result, when Genshin attacked, a set of armor appeared on them. High-quality Saint artifact armor. Impudent! I will definitely behead you today and hang your head high on the city walls to be exposed to the wind and sun for 10,000 years. The divine king in front of Genshin bellowed out. He swung a high-quality Saint artifact axe at Genshin's fist. Energy surged from the axe as it shone brightly. It radiated with powerful pulses of energy. Boom! Genshin's fist struck the axe with unimaginable power. Afterwards, all the spectators became shocked. The high-quality Saint artifact axe was like a fragile tile before Genshin's fist. With a boom, Genshin's punch shattered it. Genshin's fist continued onwards, without slowing down at all. It smashed through the Divine King's high-quality Saint artifact armor like it was unstoppable. The Divine King's entire body exploded with unstoppable force. Only his head remained intact. The Divine King became terrified. Originally, he believed that even if the 3 of them could not defeat a mid-Divine King, they would not be too far off. However, he never thought that Genshin would be even more powerful than he had imagined. He could not block a single punch from him. Stop! Don't kill me! Don't kill me! Only when he was faced with true death did he begin to feel fear. He begged for mercy through his soul sense. He was extremely terrified. A single punch, just a single punch, had blown apart an early Divine King. Genshin's display of strength made all the spectators near the entrance gasp. All of them were shocked. Genshin ignored the Divine King's pleas. The arrogance of the Darkstar race had already made him want to kill them. With a flick of his fist, the laws of strength immediately surged out. It expanded as a visible ripple in the air, directly shattering the Divine King's head and wiping out his soul. At the same time, the ripples of the laws of strength continued to expand towards the city gates. The terrifying force knocked the several dozen over-gods gathered near the gates away as they vomited blood. The entire wall shook violently. In the next moment, cracks began to appear on the ancient city wall that had existed for an unknown period of time. If it were not for the fact that the wall was protected by a rather powerful energy, it probably would have collapsed from the ripples of energy long ago. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Only a split second had passed since Genshin struck out and killed the Divine King. At this moment, the attacks of the other 2 Divine Kings had only just approached him. Genshin did not waste any time. He turned around and threw 2 punches. It was a clean strike. His fists were extremely tough, and his laws of strength had been condensed to the limit. He shattered another 2 high-quality Saint artifacts effortlessly. The 2 Divine Kings were utterly shocked when they saw the shattered high-quality Saint artifacts in their hands. They knew exactly how tough high-quality Saint artifacts were. Let alone mid-Divine Kings, even late Divine Kings would struggle to destroy high-quality Saint artifacts. Only a supreme figure who could stand at the very top among the peak Divine Kings could do something like that. Did this not mean that the cultivator they had encountered, who was only a mid-Divine King, was actually no weaker than a peak Divine King? He was even a supreme figure among the peak Divine Kings. The 2 Divine Kings became utterly shocked when they realized this. Without any hesitation, they immediately retreated. At the same time, they roared out and began to call for help without any hesitation. They no longer considered the corpse of the life-sucking beast when they faced such a powerful expert. Instead, they considered their own safety. It was difficult to conceal the energy from a clash between Divine King experts. It would spread extremely far, so the disturbance from the battle at the city gates spread throughout the entire city as soon as possible. All the Divine King experts in the city sensed the abnormality at the city gates. Immediately, large swathes of the senses of the soul swept over. That's right, it was indeed a large swath. There were just far too many senses of the soul. They were all Divine King experts. numbering over 1,000 at the very least. Jianqin did not find it strange at all that there were so many divine kings in the city. In reality, when he enveloped the entire city with the senses of his soul, he discovered that there were several times, or even several dozen times, more divine kings than any peak organization in the Saints' world. After all, this was a sealed-off world that was ruled over. There are very few internal battles, and the strongest cultivators could only become infinite primes. As time passed, there were extremely many cultivators stuck at the Divine King realm. In terms of age, the Divine King of the Dark Star race was definitely older than any Divine King in the Saints' world. There were many Divine Kings who had lived for millions of years. There were even some who had lived for tens of millions of years. After all, breaking through to the primordial realm in an environment like the Dark Star world was extremely difficult. It was impossible for anyone to reach the primordial realm here unless they possessed supreme talent. How dare you? How dare a cultivator from the outside world come to our city and kill people? You deserve to die. You actually killed the Divine King of our Dark Star race. How audacious! Chapter 2785. Angry roars came from Dark Night City. Immediately, powerful auras erupted from all over the city. There were dozens or even hundreds of energy fluctuations that belonged to the Divine King's realm. The ancient city, which had been peaceful for a long time, suddenly became turbulent. In the next moment, over 100 Divine King of the Dark Star race took off. They moved as fast as the wind and as fast as lightning, flying toward the city gates with fury and killing intent. This was the territory of the Dark Star race, and it was also their city. They were already used to seeing the cultivators of the outside world act subserviently before them. Now that someone had suddenly acted so arrogantly in front of them, how could they possibly tolerate it? Near the city gate of Dark Night City, the cultivators who had been watching from afar saw that things had developed to this point, and their expressions became extremely solemn. This is bad. Things have gotten out of hand. Let's go, let's go. We have to leave this place as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Divine King of the Dark Star race will vent his anger on us. That's right. Let's hurry up and leave before we get caught in the crossfire. The nearby cultivators in the outside world were transmitting messages to each other. All of them became very nervous. Soon after, no one dared to stay here for long. They all left at the fastest speed possible. In an instant, outside the gate of Dark Night City, all the warriors from the outside world had left. Only Jianqin stood there fearlessly. Even though he was surrounded by hundreds of Divine King, he still looked as steady as Mount Tai. Our reinforcements are here. You're dead for sure. Even if you're a Divine King at the peak of the Divine King realm, you won't be able to escape today. After you die, I will cut off your head and hang it on the walls of Dark Night City. You've lost your life for a life-devouring beast. How foolish! But it's too late for regrets now. The two Divine Kings behind Jianqin gnashed their teeth. They glared at Jianqin with hatred and anger. Not only had the two of them failed to gain anything this time, but they had even lost their high-quality saint artifacts to Jianqin. This loss was so great that it made their hearts bleed. You want me to fly with just the few of you? That's difficult. As for cutting off my head, probably even your supreme Dark Star Emperor can't do that in the Dark Star realm. Jianqin remained composed as he spoke nonchalantly. His voice did not spread out. Only the two Divine Kings could hear him. The two Divine Kings sneered inside when they heard Jianqin's words. They had seen many arrogant people before, but they had never even heard of someone as arrogant as this outsider, let alone seen one. He was just a mere Divine King at the mid-Divine King realm. Even if his battle prowess could rival a late Divine King, did he really think he was invincible? How dare he say that even the Dark Star Emperor could not kill him? Just when the two of them wanted to mock him, a huge axe had already appeared in Jianqin's hand. Jianqin was unable to bring a god artifact into the world of the fallen beast this time, but he did bring a few supreme quality saint artifacts. coupled with the many space rings he had obtained from the corpses of the sacrificial warriors and the prodigies of the peak clans in Two World Mountain, he possessed quite a few supreme quality and high-quality saint artifacts. Genshin gripped the huge axe with both hands. The shield-sized axe just happened to be exhausted from his disguise as a burly man. As the laws of strength revolved around him, he suddenly swung the axe in his hand, leaving behind a white streak in space. This time he directly used a killing move. With his mid-divine king's cultivation and a sliver of the chaotic body's power, his attack had reached the limits of the divine king realm. It was only second to the primordial realm. If he only used the cultivation of a mid-divine king, it would not be so terrifying. However, if he used a sliver of the chaotic body's power, even if it was just a sliver, his attack would become extremely terrifying among the divine king realm. Spurt! Spurt! The tremendous pressure firmly restrained the movements of the two divine king. They were unable to dodge or block Genshin's attack at all. Red liquid splashed out as their heads were lopped off. The explosive power within the axe destroyed their souls in a devastating manner. My comprehension of the laws of strength has actually increased slightly. Genshin's eyes lit up after killing the two of them. His laws of strength originated from one of the 8 sealed experts beneath the desolate plain. Now, the golden core of laws condensed from the pure laws of strength was still in his soul. Once he completely absorbed the golden core of laws, it would be extremely likely for his comprehension of the laws of strength to reach the primordial realm. However, just earlier, when he used his full strength to comprehend the laws of strength at mid-divine king realm, he could clearly sense that he had absorbed a sliver of the comprehension within the golden core of laws. Does using the laws of strength at full strength increase my comprehension of the laws of strength? Genshin thought. He subconsciously glanced at the axe in his hand and his current form. He seemed to comprehend something. I see. The saint artifact I'm using right now and my body are the best way to use the laws of strength. They're highly compatible with the laws of strength, so I can comprehend the laws of strength much more easily. Although I used the laws of strength to fight in the past, it was in a different state, which was why I didn't sense the change, Genshin thought. You're looking to die. A furious bellow rang out from the sky. Several dozen divine King Darkstars had already arrived above the tower. Their presences surged as killing intent surged. The pressure from their divine king realm blanketed the surroundings. They wore armor and wielded high-quality or supreme-quality saint artifacts. They all launched attacks from afar. The sky shone resplendently. Sword chi, blade chi, spear chi, and various other energy attacks rained down on Genshin like a storm. At the same time, the pressure of the world appeared in the sky. Even more powerful energy was brewing. The divine king of the Darkstar race was using battle skills. Genshin stomped off the ground, and the great force caused the ground to shake violently. Afterward, he directly sent a piece of land several hundred meters across into the air. The powerful attacks from the Divine King all landed on the piece of land, shattering it to pieces. Dust filled the air. Genshin used this opportunity to fly forward, dodging all the attacks with great agility. He appeared below the Divine King of the Darkstar race. Afterwards, he wielded his axe and shot into the sky like a cannonball. He appeared beside a mid-divine king in a single instance. Wielding his axe with both hands, he unleashed the full power of the laws of strength and swung it down. Spurt! Genshin moved as quickly as lightning. The power in the axe was terrifying as well. He cleaved through the high-quality saint artifact armor of the mid-divine king with a single strike, piercing through all his defenses and cleaving him in half. When the axe passed through his body, a sliver of the laws of strength remained. Not only did it reduce his body to a bloody mess, but it also dispersed his soul. In just a single strike, a mid-divine king had died. The death of a mid-divine king was a shock to the Darkstar race. It was far more shocking than the deaths of the 3 early Divine Kings. Many Divine Kings of the Dark Star race were greatly shocked. They slowed down and subconsciously took a step back. After all, killing an early Divine King in a single strike was completely different from killing a mid-Divine King in a single strike. Chapter 2786. The eyes of many of the Divine King of the Dark Star race lit up slightly when they heard the 7th Hall Master's praise. This was because they all knew that the 7th Hall Master disliked cultivators from the outside world very much. He was the person who hated cultivators from the outside world the most out of the 10 Hall Masters of the Dark Star race. If it were not for the fact that the Dark Star Emperor and a few other Hall Masters allowed the existence of cultivators from the outside world, as well as the fact that they needed to obtain resources from the Saints' world through cultivators from the outside world, the 7th Hall Master probably would have killed all the cultivators from the outside world who were active in the Dark Star world long ago. Although the upper echelons of the Dark Star realm allowed outer realms cultivators to move about in this place, there was a prerequisite. That was, the outer realms cultivators could not be too powerful. If they were only early Divine Kings, their Dark Star race would not care. However, if a Divine King reached mid-Divine King, it would be enough for the Dark Star race to pay attention to them. As for late Divine King experts, they were targets that the Dark Star race had to kill, whether they were independent cultivators or belonged to a large organization. The Dark Star race would never tolerate the existence of a late Divine King expert. This was because the cultivators of the outside world were suppressed by the laws of the Dark Star world. They were nowhere near as powerful as the Dark Star race, so it would be much easier for them to break through to the primordial realm. A late Divine King expert could break through to the primordial realm at any time. Once a primordial realm expert appeared among the foreign cultivators, they would pose an extremely great threat to the Dark Star race. As a result, the Dark Star race would never allow something like that to happen. As long as they came across late Divine King experts, the upper echelon of the Dark Star race would reach an agreement, which was to kill them without mercy, even if they had to pay a certain price. Although the strength Genshin had displayed right now was not at late Divine King level, he was even more terrifying than any late Divine King in the eyes of the Dark Star race. A mid-Divine King was no weaker than a late Divine King. Once he broke through to late Divine King level, did that not mean that basically no one below the primordial realm could do anything to him? This kind of person was too terrifying. Around Genshin, 8 Divine Kings of the Dark Star race took action. All 8 of them were mid-Divine Kings, and they had already discussed this through telepathy. The moment they took action, the 8 of them immediately formed a killing formation. The power of their souls surged out wildly and gathered together, forming a formation formed purely from the power of their souls. The formation of this matrix was extremely fast, and it was completed in an instant. It was so fast that even the late Divine King had no time to react. The power of the 8 Divine Kings' souls intertwined, forming a mental cage in the air. It came crashing down, enveloping Genshin's soul. Genshin only felt his surroundings change. In the next moment, Anya City and all the Divine King gathered at the city. Gates vanished from his eyes. Genshin only felt like he had arrived in a world of darkness. It was so dark that he could not even see his fingers. At that moment, his soul seemed to be trapped. Not only did his senses towards the outside world plummet, but even his control over his body gradually became numb. This formation can actually trap the soul. Once it's completely trapped, it'll be equivalent to separating the soul from the body. If I can't resist it, I won't be able to fight back at all. I never thought the Dark Star race would have such a wondrous formation. Genshin frowned as he became vigilant. Naturally, he did not fear a formation cast down by a Divine King. It could not trap his soul at all. But if it was cast down by several primordial realm experts, Genshin was not confident he could stop it. It looks like I have to be a little more careful when I face the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race in the future. At the very least, I have to prevent them from casting formations that can trap souls like this, thought Jianqin. He was in no hurry to get through the formation. Instead, he carefully observed the wonders of the formation so that he would not suffer at the hands of the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race in the future. Jianqin's eyes shone brightly. They shone brightly. This was the result of pushing the power of his soul to the limit. He had fused with the world and fused with the ways, studying them with all his might. As a primordial realm expert, his comprehension of the ways of the world had reached a certain level. Although it was nowhere close to grand primes or grand exalts who could peer into the deepest mysteries of the world, it was still possible for him to obtain some rough information. This is the god-destroying formation of Fallen Star. They've actually grasped a supreme secret technique like the god-destroying formation of Fallen Star. This is a supreme secret technique passed down by our ancestor in the past. In our clan, not even 1% of the Divine King has grasped the god-destroying formation of Fallen Star. He's been trapped by the god-destroying formation of Fallen Star. His soul has been separated from his body. He can't feel anything right now. Quick, let's work together and kill him. A Divine King of the Dark Star race called out from the gates of Dark Night City. At the same time, the gazes of the 8 Divine Kings who used the god-destroying formation of Fallen Star suddenly sharpened. They all bellowed out, "Die!" With that, a huge sword completely condensed from the power of their souls suddenly formed from the power of their souls. It pierced through all of Jianqin's defenses and directly slashed towards Jianqin's soul. Let alone mid-Divine Kings, even late Divine Kings would be heavily injured by the attack. This is called the god-destroying formation of Fallen Star. Instead of calling it a formation, it's better to call it a powerful secret technique. However, this secret technique really is profound. Once it's successfully used, it's basically impossible to defend against. The only way I've derived to deal with it is to take it head-on with an attack of the same nature. Only the martial soul secret technique and profound sword chi that I possess can fend off this secret technique. Just when the huge sword was about to slash down, Jianqin stopped deriving. With a thought, the god-destroying formation of Fallen Star that the 8 Divine Kings cast together shattered. Even the huge sword condensed from the power of the souls collapsed. As soon as the formation collapsed, the 8 Divine Kings suffered a huge backlash. Their bodies all trembled as they paled instantly. Their hovering bodies tottered, almost falling out of the sky. The god-destroying formation of Fallen Star was powerful. It could break through all defenses and directly attack the soul. However, the formation had a fatal weakness as well, which was that they would suffer a huge backlash if they misjudged their opponent's strength and used the formation on an opponent whose soul was far greater than theirs. It might even injure their own souls. Waiyu, the 8 Divine Kings who cast the formation, were all filled with fear. They stared at Jianqin in utter disbelief. Others might not know what had happened earlier, but the 8 of them knew exactly what had happened. They had discovered that although Jianqin had displayed the cultivation of a mid-Divine King, his soul was unbelievably powerful. It was even terrifying. This was not the primordial spirit that a Divine King should have. Suddenly, in the hearts of the 8 of them, a thought that caused them to feel extremely terrified was born at the same time. Chapter 2787. After killing the 8 mid-Divine King Dark Star experts, Jianqin's burly figure swayed as he hovered in the air. His face had become much paler, showing signs of exhaustion. Of course, this was all a disguise. If he could take on the god-destroying meteorite formation and kill 8 Divine King experts as a mid-Divine King without panting, it would be rather shocking. Although he wanted to play the role of Gu Qi as a supreme god king, there had to be a limit. Once this limit was exceeded, it would easily arouse the suspicions of others and cause more trouble. Even so, Jianqin's battle prowess had shocked many Divine King experts of the Dark Star race. The deaths of the 8 mid-Divine King experts frightened the initial Divine King experts of the Dark Star race who were attacking Genshin. They all stopped in their tracks, not daring to advance for a moment. They had heard of the god-destroying meteorite formation before. It was a supreme secret technique passed down through the generations of the Dark Star race. When 8 mid-Divine King experts worked together to cast the god-destroying meteorite formation, the formation was naturally extremely powerful. However, even such a terrifying formation was unable to kill this foreign cultivator. Instead, he had killed the 8 mid-Divine King experts who had cast the formation. This terrifying battle prowess made them feel like they were invincible. Even mid-Divine King experts who were more powerful than them had died so quickly. What could they, who were only early Divine King experts, do? Oh no, this foreign cultivator is even more powerful than we imagined. He's not someone we can fight against. Only late Divine King experts can defeat him. An early Divine King exclaimed. He quickly retreated as he spoke, retreating into Anya City. The reward from the 7th Hallmaster is astonishing, but you need to be alive to receive it. This foreign cultivator is clearly not someone we can deal with. Let's leave him to those more powerful fellows, another Divine King said. Even though Genshin was showing signs of exhaustion, he chose to withdraw without any hesitation. For a moment, many of the early Divine King experts who had attacked Genshin withdrew from the battle. They no longer participated in the battle. After all, they were not an army. Killing foreign cultivators was not their mission. They were only doing it for the sake of some reward. As soon as these people left, the number of Divine King experts who had attacked Genshin decreased from over 100 to around 40. Half of them were early Divine King experts, and the other half were mid-Divine King experts. The remaining early Divine King experts who were left behind were all rather hesitant. The mid-Divine King experts also stared at the pale-faced Genshin gravely. No one dared to make the first move. Humph, what a bunch of trash. There are so many of you, but you're scared stiff by a single foreign cultivator. You're a disgrace to us Dark Stars. At this moment, a cold voice rang out from Anya City. With that, the late Divine King's aura suddenly erupted. Powerful ripples of energy shook the entire city. A black star rose up from Anya City. It contained highly concentrated energy. Then, under the pressure of the world, it turned into a black streak of light and shot toward Genshin. When the black star shot out, it had already locked onto Genshin's aura. Genshin had nowhere to run. A god-tier battle skill. Genshin's heart skipped a beat. With his experience, he could obviously tell the grade of the battle skill with a single glance. What surprised him was that he had actually encountered a Divine King who had grasped a god-tier battle skill so easily. No one could hide from the senses of Genshin's soul in Anya City. From what Genshin had observed, this person's strength was not at the very peak in Anya City. In the Saints' world, there were not many people who could grasp a god-tier battle skill at the Divine King level. Every single one of them possessed supreme talent and were monstrous existences. They could be counted on one hand. However, Genshin had come across a random Divine King in the Dark Star world who had grasped a god-tier battle skill, which surprised him slightly. This person has likely cultivated for an extremely long period of time. If he had spent a long period of time comprehending a divine tier battle skill, even if his talent was lacking, it wouldn't be difficult for him to comprehend a divine tier battle skill that wasn't too profound. He discovered that he might need to reevaluate the strength of the Dark Star race. Not only were there countless Divine Kings in the race, but there might also be many late Divine Kings who had grasped God-tier battle skills. Even the Divine King was like that, let alone the monstrously talented Dark Star clansman who could break through to the primordial realm in such an environment. It looks like I have to be more careful when I encounter primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race in the future. These people might be even more difficult to deal with than the primordial realm experts in the Saint's world. I don't want to fail miserably, Jianqin thought. He discovered that he had benefited quite a lot from this trip to Anya City. At the very least, he had gained a new understanding of the primordial realm experts of the Dark Star race from the Divine King. These primordial realm experts would all be his enemies in the future. I can't be reckless when I come to the Dark Star race this time. Although the will of the Grand Exalt of the Wood Spirit has suppressed them, it has also created them from another perspective. These thoughts occurred in a single instance. Although he thought about it, Jianqin did not slow down at all. His presence surged as powerful battle intent burned. He swung his axe as hard as he could, colliding with the incoming black star loudly. With a deafening boom, powerful ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings as a storm. The ancient city walls of Dark Night City, which had stood for countless years, finally collapsed under such a powerful shockwave. The storm of energy from the explosion of the Dark Star directly swallowed Jianqin. His fate was unknown. This king has only comprehended the Doomsday Star recently. I'll use you today to test the power of this battle skill. Dying to the Doomsday Star is a form of glory. The cold voice rang out again from Anya City. At the same time, the city lord Baijin and a few other members of the upper echelon gathered together in the majestic city lord's estate at the center of Anya City. They paid close attention to the battle at the city gates. Doomsday Star, proud Ice King, has studied it for at least 7 million years. He has finally mastered this god-tier battle skill. Now his position as one of the 108 kings is secured. Beside Dark Night City, Lord Baijin, an old man stroked his long beard and sighed. He was one of the Vice City lords of Anya City. His name was Si Wuqing. The proud Ice King's strength is definitely enough to rank in the top 10 of the so-called Divine King in the Saints' world. For him to deal with a mid-divine king from the outside world and use the supreme battle skill, the Doomsday Star is just making a mountain out of a molehill. Is there a need to treat a mere cultivator from the outside world like that? Another Vice City lord, Shuesha, said indifferently, the cultivator from the outside world is not simple either. He's only at the mid-divine king, yet he possesses strength that exceeds the late divine king. We can't let someone like him grow. It's best to kill him sooner rather than later to prevent any future problems, said another Vice City lord. He looked away and continued, there's no need to watch anymore. Once the proud Ice King's Doomsday Star is used, the cultivator from the outside world is dead for sure. Let's continue with the mission the Emperor gave us. We need to convert the essence blood of the divine beast as soon as possible. If we take too long, we'll delay the ceremony. Baijin had remained silent the entire time. When he heard that, he immediately became extremely cautious. He opened his hand, and a droplet of blood appeared out of nowhere, hovering above his palm. The power of the bloodline hidden in this droplet of essence blood is extremely powerful. It's just a single droplet of essence blood, yet it has gathered the power of our 36 lords and 108 kings. We've spent several years refining it, yet we still haven't converted it completely. I wonder what kind of divine beast it is. It's actually so powerful. Chapter 2788. Hearing City Lord Baijin talk about the mythical beast, the expressions of the Vice City lords, and some of the Dark Night City's higher-ups changed. It said that the divine beast is extremely extraordinary. It possesses the laws of ways with the greatest defensive power, and its battle prowess is extremely heaven-defying. No one at the same level of cultivation is its opponent. Since it has the bloodline of a divine beast, it's normal for its battle prowess to be powerful. However, I've heard that the truly heaven-defying aspect of the divine beast is that it can devour various heavenly resources without limit. As long as it has enough heavenly resources, its rate of growth will be astonishing. What? It can devour heavenly resources without limit to increase its strength? Hearing this, Vice City Lord Si Wuqing was shocked. but he immediately shook his head and said in disbelief, "This is impossible. Not to mention that consuming a large amount of heavenly treasures will cause too many impurities to be produced in the body, making the source, strength, impure. Just the threshold of the restriction of the laws is impossible to cross." The comprehension of laws was the greatest obstacle for cultivators. Only when one's comprehension of laws reached a certain level could they break through. This was the order of the world, and the Dark Star race was no exception. It was exactly because of the suppression from the grand exalt of the wood spirit race that it was extremely difficult for them to comprehend laws in the Dark Star world. As a result, it was extremely difficult for them to reach the level of a divine king. As a result, every single divine king of the Dark Star race had to accumulate over a long period of time. The city lord of Anya City, Baijin, said, "I don't know if that divine beast can continue to grow by devouring natural treasures, but according to the information I've received, the divine beast's ability to digest natural treasures is beyond imagination. However, your understanding of the divine beast is still far too lacking." The city lord paused when he reached there before continuing, "Everyone, do you know what the divine beast's strength was when it first appeared in our Dark Star world?" Before anyone could say anything, Baijin continued, "He was an overgod. When he first appeared in our Dark Star world, he was only an overgod. Of course, a mere overgod is not enough to attract the attention of our Dark Star race. What truly made everyone remember him was when he brought back the corpse of an early divine king from the Two-World Mountain as a peak overgod. In the end, he exchanged the life-devouring beast's corpse for a large number of heavenly resources in the 100 Saint City. Afterwards, he entered seclusion in the 100 Saint City, and when he emerged, he had already become a god king. This breakthrough doesn't mean anything. Going from the peak of overgod to the level of divine king is only a single step, said the vice city, lord of the city. The vice city master, Siesha, said, "Although it was more difficult for the Outer Realms cultivators to make a breakthrough in the Dark Star realm compared to the Outer Realms, it was much easier compared to the Dark Star realm. There were many examples of Outer Realms cultivators making a breakthrough in a single night in the Dark Star realm." Baijin glanced at him. That's right. If it was just a single breakthrough, it wouldn't mean anything. However, after he broke through to Divine King, he broke through again in just a year, going from early Divine King to mid-Divine King in a single stroke. What? He went from early Divine King to mid-Divine King in just a year. A year. He broke through again in just a year. That's just unbelievable. The vice city lords and the upper echelon of the city all revealed disbelief when they heard Baijin's words. This was because once their cultivation reached the God King realm, if they wanted to advance further, every step would be incomparably difficult. I heard that the Divine Beast wasn't Divine King at mid-Divine King, but late Divine King. At this moment, a member of the upper echelon of the city said softly, "Late Divine King? Did the Divine Beast break through again after breaking through to Divine King?" At that moment, everyone was shocked. Although they knew about the Divine Beast's existence, many of them did not know about the specifics. As the city lord of the city, Baijin naturally had a certain status in the Dark Star race. Therefore, he knew a lot of information. He continued, "Once a cultivator from the outside world appears in the middle Divine King, we have to eliminate them as much as possible. Therefore, after the Divine Beast left the 100 Saint City, someone from our race had already taken action against him. It was said that more than a dozen Divine King were dispatched. One of them was a late Divine King, while the other 5 were mid-Divine King. Logically speaking, such a great force should have been more than enough to deal with a mid-Divine King that had just broken through. But the result was the exact opposite. All the Divine King, including the late Divine King, were slain by the Divine Beast. The dead Divine King were all people of Flying Phoenix City. A vice city lord of Flying Phoenix City was infuriated, so he personally led a group of experts to hunt down the Divine Beast. In the end, over a dozen Divine King died, but they still failed to capture the Divine Beast. It fled into the depths of the Two-World Mountain in the end. The Two-World Mountain is a forbidden zone of our race. Unless it's absolutely necessary, we would never set foot in there, let alone the even more terrifying depths. Unless the people of our race are at the primordial realm, they'll basically die once they set foot in the depths of the Two-World Mountain. As a result, after the divine beast fled into the depths of the mountain, Flying Phoenix City could only give up on hunting it down. Afterwards, the divine beast vanished without a trace. When it appeared again, 2 years had already passed, and it was no longer a mid-divine king. Instead, it had broken through to late divine king. You all know what happened after that. That divine beast wreaked havoc in Flying Phoenix City. Flying Phoenix City's 108 kings and 36 lords all attacked together, but they couldn't kill it. Instead, many of Flying Phoenix City's 108 kings and 36 lords died. Even with Bai Jin's mental fortitude, he still shivered when he reached there. The divine beast's strength is beyond your imagination. Although it's only a late divine king, it definitely possesses the strength of a primordial realm expert. A late divine king can fight a primordial realm expert. Many of the upper echelon of Dark Knight City were stunned. They did not know how powerful the primordial realm experts of the outside world were, but they understood just how powerful the primordial realm experts of their race were. Even though the 108 kings and 36 lords were all peak god kings and all possessed powerful god-tier battle skills, they would not be able to defeat a primordial realm expert, even if they worked together. Even if they had just broken through, they would not be able to defeat a primordial realm expert. In a year, it went from early divine king to mid-divine king, and then in 2 years, it went from mid-divine king to late divine king. Not only is this divine beast powerful, but its rate of cultivation is unbelievable as well. Does that mean the divine beast's rate of cultivation is so fast because it has ingested a large number of heavenly resources? Chapter 2789. The upper echelon of Dark Knight City was very shocked. Their race was suppressed by the senses of grand exalts of the wood spirit race in the Dark Star world. So every single breakthrough was extremely difficult. They needed to spend a lot of time trying to break through. Basically, every single God King would take 1,000,000 years to reach the level of God Kings. Yet now that they heard that the divine beast had only used 3 years to go from early God King to late God King, all of their eyes had turned red with envy. Even the city lord of Dark Knight City, Bai Jin, felt indescribable envy. If only we could break out of this damned prison. If it weren't for the suppression of the Grand Exalt's will, we would have become infinite primes long ago with our abilities. A member of the upper echelon of Dark Knight City looked at the sky and grumbled. Infinite primes are nothing. With the amount of time we've spent cultivating, we would have become chaotic primes long ago if we were in the outside world. Why would we be trapped in the Divine King realm right now? Said Xiesha. Although these people had never been to the outer world, there were many cultivators from the outer world in the Dark Star realm. Among them, there was no lack of heaven's prides from some of the peak powers. Thus, even though they were unable to step out of the Dark Star realm in their entire lives, they possessed a very clear understanding of the outer world. Enough, stop grumbling. If the ceremony succeeds, the limit of our race will be chaotic primes if nothing unexpected happens. At that time, the suppression of the Grand Exalt will weaken, and it'll be much easier for us to become infinite primes, said the city lord of Dark Knight City. The city lord of Anya City, Bai Jin, said. His gaze was fixed on the drop of essence, blood, in his hand. He knew very well how important the essence blood of the mythological beast was to the grand ritual. Their Dark Star race had been preparing for this ceremony for countless years. The ceremony that would be held soon had been planned many years ago, but there was only a 70% chance of success. The appearance of the divine beast was completely outside of their plans. To the Dark Star race, this was a pleasant surprise that they had not expected at all, because the bloodline power of the divine beast was too strong. With the help of the bloodline power, The success rate of the grand ritual would be raised from 70% to 90%. The Vice City Lord, Si Wuching, glanced in the direction of the city gate and showed a trace of regret. He said, "It's a pity that the cultivator from the outside world was so strong. If he had been sent to the depths of the two-world mountain to hunt the divine king realm life-sucking beast, he would have achieved very good results. There's nothing to feel pity about. This person's ability to fight above his level is too strong. If we don't kill him now, it will be even harder to kill him in the future." Vice City Lord Shuesha said he had already retracted his divine sense that swept toward the city gate. He guessed that the martial artist from the outside world had already fallen, because the divine king was only at the middle stage of the divine realm. No matter how strong he was, he would definitely die under Proud Ice King's divine battle skill, Doomsday Star. Well, since the matter at the city gate has been settled, let's not waste time here. Let's seize the time to refine this drop of blood essence. Baijin, the city lord of Dark Night City, spoke. He pondered for a while and continued. The day of the grand ritual is getting closer and closer. The flesh and blood of the divine king realm life-sucking beast is also indispensable for the grand ritual. We must prepare more. Manager Hong, you must gather more cultivators from the outside world to hunt in the depths of the two-world mountain. This task was given by the great emperor himself. Yes, City Lord. Manager Hong was a white-haired old man. He assisted the city lord of Dark Night City, and he was in charge of handling trivial matters. He seemed to think of something, and he became troubled. He asked, "City Lord, the 7th Hall's leader is very prejudiced against cultivators from the outside world, and he has already breached the 100 Saints City. If we work with cultivators from the outside world now, won't the 7th Hall's leader become displeased?" All the upper echelon of Dark Night City feared the 7th Hall's leader when he was mentioned. Not only was he a primordial realm expert, but he was also one of the leaders of the 10 Great Halls. He had countless divine king realm experts under his command. Even the vice leaders who had also reached the primordial realm listened to the 7th Hall's leader. Most importantly, the 7th Hall's leader had been in charge of the Darkstar race for the past 1,000 years. He could decide all the matters of the Darkstar race. Even the leaders of the other 9 halls had no right to interfere. He was the person with the greatest authority below the Darkstar Emperor. There's no need to worry. The 7th Hall's leader is only targeting the 100 Saint City. We just need to avoid recruiting the organizations that control the 100 Saint City. Moreover, we'll need to rely on cultivators from the outside world to hunt down the divine king, realm, life-devouring beast in the depths of Two-World Mountain. If we rely on our clansmen, the casualties will be extremely great, said Baijin. Yes, sir. With that, Baijin was about to lead everyone to continue refining the essence blood. However, just as he turned around, a surging killing intent suddenly erupted from the city gates. Baijin paused. He looked in the direction of the city gates, and a sliver of surprise appeared in his eyes. The divine king realm cultivator from the outside world was actually still alive after taking on an attack from the proud Ice King's god tier battle skill, Doomsday Star? The deputy castellans and all the higher-ups beside Baijin had the same reaction as Baijin. Their faces were filled with astonishment. At the city gates of Anya City, the ancient city walls had long collapsed and turned into ruins. The energy storm formed by the explosion of the god tier battle skill, Doomsday Star, was slowly dissipating. Jianshin's figure, which was submerged in the violent energy turbulence, gradually emerged. He was still floating in the air, looking battered and exhausted. His face was terrifyingly pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He had spent a lot of effort to force out this trace of blood. All his injuries and weakness were naturally faked. However, the surging killing intent emanating from his body was not fake at all. He really wanted to kill. Siyu's essence blood. They actually took out Siyu's essence blood. Every movement in Anya City could not escape Jinshin's powerful mind sense. He naturally discovered the drop of essence blood in Bai Jin's hand. This instantly ignited the anger in his heart and made his killing intent erupt like a volcano. Essence blood was different from ordinary blood because it was the blood of the heart, the blood of life. It was self-evident that it was precious to any cultivator or divine beast. Regardless of whether they were cultivators or divine beasts, the essence blood in their bodies was extremely limited. Even a drop of it could cause great damage to their vitality. At this moment, he actually found a drop of Siyu's essence blood in Anya City. Anya City was only a city that was not ranked high among the 36 cities of the Darkstar clan. Its strength was only average. If such an ordinary city had a drop of Siyu's essence blood, how could the city stronger than Anya City not have one? Darkstar clan, how dare you treat Siyu like this? I'll make you regret it. Jinshin roared in his heart. He found that Siyu's essence blood had become impure. It was contaminated with a trace of the aura of the Darkstar clan. Chapter 2790. The appearance of a drop of Siyu's blood completely infuriated Jinshin. His hair stood on end, and his killing intent surged. Wielding a giant axe, he leaped over the ruined city walls and charged into Anya City. During this time, the law of strength wrapped around his body. He had already displayed the law of strength of the middle stage of the Divine King Realm. Although he had not yet reached the late stage of the Divine King Realm, he was getting closer and closer to it. This was because his current form was very compatible with the law of strength. It was as if he had invisibly resonated with the golden core of the law of strength in his body. The law of strength contained in the golden core of the law of strength seeped out bit by bit, and was absorbed by Jinshin to deepen his comprehension of the law of strength. The strength of the middle stage of the Divine King Realm is not enough. My law of strength needs to make a breakthrough. Only by reaching the late stage of the Divine King Realm can I deal with this situation. Although Jinshin was filled with killing intent, he did not lose his mind. He looked in the direction of the city, Lord Mansion. His eyes were cold and emotionless like the grim Reaper from Hell. Stop him. Don't let him enter the city. A loud shout came from Anya City. Immediately, many of the Divine King hiding in the city woke up. Anya City was the city of the Darkstar race. More than 90% of the people here were members of the Darkstar race. Less than 10% of the people here were from the outside world. If a battle broke out in the city, not to mention how much damage it would cause to Anya City, the number of low-level clansmen who would die in the aftermath of the battle would be innumerable. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, more than 20 figures soared into the sky and surrounded Jinshin from all directions. However, these people were all in the late stage of the Divine King Realm. They were all in the late stage of the Divine King Realm. The middle stage of the Divine King Realm had not made any more moves. Everyone back off. I will kill this man with my own hands. Just then, proud Ice King's voice was heard, with undisguised anger and gloom. He, the proud Ice King, had studied for millions of years before he finally mastered the divine level battle skill, Doomsday Star. Previously, he had wanted to use it to kill this martial artist from the outside world. With his identity and status, using the divine fighting skill against a warrior in the middle stage of the Divine King Realm was already making a fuss over nothing. Proud Ice King would not feel any sense of accomplishment even if he killed the outsider, but it was a great opportunity for him to display of the divine fighting skill, Doomsday Star, of the Dark Star fighting skill. Proud Ice Kings. There were 108 kings in Dark Knight City. According to the rules, each king had to master at least one divine level battle skill. The competition was based on survival of the fittest. Among the divine kings, Proud Ice King was the only one who had not mastered a divine level fighting skill. Therefore, his status as one of the divine kings had always been a little unworthy of his title, which had always been a hindrance in his heart. Now, Proud Ice King had finally mastered the Doomsday Star. Just as he was about to display the divine level fighting skill in front of thousands of people and announce to the whole city that he had become one of the Divine Kings, he had never thought that the divine level fighting skill that he was so proud of could not even kill a warrior in the middle stage of the Divine King realm. What would the people of the Dark Knight City think of him? The divine level fighting skill that Proud Ice King had painstakingly comprehended was so weak. It was not even enough to kill a warrior in the middle stage of the Divine King realm. This immediately made Proud Ice King feel like his face was burning hot. He had lost all his face. Suddenly, a huge palm stretched out from the city. The palm was completely formed by energy. When it opened, it had a radius of more than 300 meters and could hold a part of the universe. Proud Ice King attacked again. He did not appear in person. He was still hiding somewhere in the city, attacking Genshin from afar. Genshin let out an angry roar. The firm muscles on his arms bulged, and the veins on his arms bulged. He exerted his strength to the limit. He held the axe with both hands and swung it again and again, forming a dense shadow of the axe in front of him. What powerful strength! Every attack is as powerful as ours. He can actually swing so many axes in one breath. Won't he be exhausted? Could it be that his strength is limitless? The 20 or so warriors in the late stage of the Divine King realm were all shocked when they saw this scene. In just half a second, Genshin had swung his axe several dozen times with lightning-like speed. Every time he swung out, a huge shadow of the axe would appear and forcefully disperse the huge hand of energy that the Proud Ice King sent out. The Proud Ice King finally could not sit still in the city anymore. As if he had been greatly provoked, he suddenly appeared in the air with a cold snort. He stared at Genshin coldly. He wore white clothes and had long, snow-white hair that reached his waist. He was extremely young, maintaining his appearance from when he was in his 20s. He was valiant and extraordinary. It's a glorious death for you to be able to force my original body out. You have the right to leave behind your name here, the Proud Ice King said coldly as he stood with his hands behind his back. Genshin sneered. Without saying anything, he directly swung his axe. At the same time, he possessed a sliver of the power of the chaotic body. Humph, you're just a tiny pearl, yet you dare to compete with the moon? The Proud Ice King snorted coldly. He raised his hand calmly and directly reached towards Genshin's axe. When his hand came in contact with the axe, the Proud Ice King's body shook violently. His face changed at that moment as well. What power! The Proud Ice King was secretly surprised. Great power surged in his hand, and he knocked the axe away with a violent jerk. When he looked at his hand again, he discovered that it had split open and was dripping with blood. Genshin and the Proud Ice King engaged in an intense battle in the sky above Dark Knight City. He swung his axe in an airtight manner as he swung it at the Proud Ice King again and again. The Proud Ice King also demonstrated his great strength as one of the 108 kings. His strength had completely exceeded regular late Divine King Realm experts. If he were in the Saints' world, he would be able to rank within the top 100 of the Divine King Realm. He played to his strengths and avoided his weaknesses. He did not want to clash with Genshin directly. Instead, he used his advantage of higher cultivation to engage in an intense battle with Genshin. Genshin was obviously not the opponent of such an expert, as he was only at the partial Divine King realm. He was firmly suppressed by the Proud Ice King. The Supreme Quality Saint artifact in his hand had become rather dim after enduring the Proud Ice King's attacks. It seemed like it could not last much longer. Dark Knight City below was affected as well. The shock waves of energy destroyed many streets and buildings. A large number of weaker cultivators fled in panic. Proud Ice King, if you don't deal with this person quickly, Dark Knight City will be destroyed by your hands. A loud voice rang out from Dark Knight City. It was filled with mockery. The person who spoke was also one of the 108 kings of Dark Night City. He had always been at odds with the proud Ice King. At the same time, a few of the 108 kings of Dark Night City had already disappeared. A large number of late Divine King Realm experts had also disappeared. They had all concealed their auras and spread out in all directions, forming a net. They had already formed an inescapable net, locking down the entire area. They were preparing to prevent Jianqin from escaping. Let alone Dark Night City, the entire Dark Star race would not let such a powerful outsider escape. Proud Ice King was enraged after being provoked by these words. He no longer held back, and an ice sword instantly appeared in his hand. The sword was a supreme quality saint artifact. It was also Proud Ice King's strongest weapon. Once the sword appeared, it meant that Proud Ice King was no longer holding back. He was going all out. At the same time, in the city, Lord's mansion. City Lord, everything has been set up inside and outside the city. I guarantee that the outsider won't be able to escape, Steward Hong reported to Bai Jin, the city Lord of Dark Night City. Chapter 2791. Gale King, Sword King, Shadow King, Skyfist King, and Earthshaker King have all become 108 kings longer than Proud Ice King. They are all stronger than Proud Ice King. Isn't it overkill to send 6 kings to deal with an outsider who is only at the middle stage of the Divine King realm? Deputy City, Lord Blood Hangman said, "Don't underestimate any outsider who can challenge those of a higher realm. Most of them have obtained incredible inheritances and mastered all kinds of strange, secret skills. It won't be easy to kill them." Bai Jin looked at Jianqin, who was fighting with Proud Ice King, and continued, "Don't underestimate Proud Ice King, because he has the upper hand. It's almost impossible for him to kill that outsider. So we need a few more people. So what if it's like killing a chicken with a butcher's cleaver? As long as we can kill that outsider, let alone 6 kings, even if all the 108 kings move out. So what?" Bai Jin seemed indifferent, but he was determined to kill Jianqin. If he was just an ordinary divine king, the Dark Star tribe might be more lenient. However, Jianqin was too strong. The Dark Star tribe would never allow such a powerful outsider to live in their own world. As soon as Bai Jin gave the order, 5 powerful auras surged in the Dark Night City. Gale King, Sword King, Shadow King, Skyfist King, and Earthshaker King appeared. Together with Proud Ice King, the 6 kings attacked Jianqin together. "Why are you here? I alone am enough to kill this person. Why do you need to do it?" The appearance of the 5 kings made Proud Ice King's expression change. He shouted angrily. He was very unwilling. He knew that if the 6 kings took action, the warrior from the outer world would have no chance of surviving. However, this was not the result that Proud Ice King wanted. He wanted to personally kill the warrior from the outer world who had humiliated him in front of the entire city. Hee, Proud Ice King, don't force yourself. If you could really kill him, he would have died at the city gate. He wouldn't be alive until now. Among the 5 kings who came to help, one of them chuckled sarcastically. The Proud Ice King didn't say anything. Cold light flickered in his eyes, and his face was extremely gloomy. After that, the kings stopped talking. They all tacitly took up one side each, forming an inescapable net that surrounded Jianqin. The Gale Wind King had comprehended the Gale Law, and his speed was extremely fast. He floated high up in the sky, and a gale immediately blew between the heaven and earth. He seemed to have become one with the gale that was wreaking havoc between the heaven and earth. His figure was very agile, and his movements were like a phantom that was difficult to capture. Battle Sword King wielded a long sword that emitted a dazzling radiance. He comprehended the laws of the sword. With a wave of his long sword, a dense layer of sword shadows instantly appeared in the air. The Shadow King was just like his name. He looked like an illusory shadow that alternated between reality and illusion. It was very strange. The Heaven Fist King and the Earth Shaker King were both tall and sturdy men. They were even more ferocious than Jianshin's current appearance. They were over 3 meters tall and looked like two small giants. The two of them were known for their strength. The Heaven Fist King had comprehended the laws of the fist. His attacks were extremely fast, and his fists were like a violent storm. The Earth Shaker King comprehended the laws of the earth. Yellow light flickered around his body, and a layer of armor condensed from the laws of the earth appeared on his body. It gave off an indestructible feeling. The few of them launched a fierce attack on Jianshin as soon as they arrived. Even though they felt that it was making a mountain out of a molehill to deal with a mere divine king realm martial artist from the outside world with the strength of 6 kings, they did not hold back at all when they really started fighting. Jianshin immediately felt a mountainous pressure when the 6 of them worked together. It was already rather difficult for him to deal with the proud Ice King with his strength as a mid-divine king realm martial artist. Now that the 5 kings were no weaker than the proud Ice King, he immediately became powerless. It's already extremely impressive for me to be able to fight the proud Ice King with my strength as a mid-divine king realm martial artist. Now that the Darkstar race has sent out 6 kings, it'll be abnormal if I still manage to fight them. It'll be very suspicious, Jianshin thought. At the same time, the Heaven Fist King arrived behind him and directly threw a punch. With a thought, Jianshin began to retract his chaotic force as much as he could, gathering all of it into his Naiden so that the defenses of the chaotic body would be reduced to a minimum. Just when the Heaven Fist King's fist was about to land on his back, he unleashed the will of the ultimate way of the sword. He condensed an invisible sword chi and stabbed it viciously at his back. With a thud, the Heaven Fist King's tough fist struck Jianshin's back with great force. Jianshin vomited a mouthful of blood. His back was reduced to a bloody mess as he was blown away. The Celestial Fist King frowned slightly. He stared at Jianshin's back that had already become bloody as a sliver of doubt appeared in his eyes. When he had struck Jianshin's back with his punch, he felt like something was off. However, where did this feeling come from? He was momentarily at a loss as well. The proud Ice King, the Sword King, the Shadow King, the Earthshaker King, and the Gale King did not stand by idly either. They all struck out, causing winds to wreak havoc in the sky above Dark Night City as booms constantly rang out. Most of them chose to launch powerful energy attacks at Jianshin from afar. Very rarely did they come into physical contact with Jianshin. However, without any exception, all the people who came into physical contact with Jianshin experienced a strange feeling when they heavily injured Jianshin. However, they were unable to pinpoint the source of the problem. Under the merciless attacks of the 6 kings, Jianshin's wounds increased. In just a short while, he was completely covered in blood. He vomited mouthful after mouthful of blood. Anyone who saw his current appearance would think that he was severely injured and on the brink of death. Jianshin bellowed out at the sky. His eyes had become scarlet as if he had gone mad. He resisted as hard as he could. The laws of strength revolved around him. Even though his power of laws was being dispersed time and time again, he continued to resist tenaciously. During this process, the golden core of laws within him leaked out faster and faster. All of them were absorbed by Jianshin, allowing him to comprehend them at an extremely rapid rate. As a result, his understanding of the laws of strength became more and more complete and richer. At this moment, he was only a step away from breaking through to late divine king realm with the laws of strength. The physical strength of this foreign fighter is actually so great. Even when the 6 kings work together, they still can't kill him in a short amount of time. The city lord, Bai Jin, sighed in amazement within the city lord's estate. Afterwards, he showed some pity and said regretfully, "It's just a pity that such a prodigy isn't from our clan, or our clan would have gained another primordial realm expert." Chapter 2792. Everyone agreed with Blood Hangman's words. All the higher-ups of Dark Night City had witnessed the powerful combat strength displayed by this outsider. This made them all fearful and even cast a shadow over the hearts of some of the higher-ups. Naturally, they wanted to kill this outsider as soon as possible. He was only in the middle divine king realm, and the 108 kings had already taken action. If he broke through to the late divine king realm, even by Jean, who was recognized as the strongest person in Dark Knight City, might not be his opponent. This kind of strength had already made some of the higher-ups of Dark Knight City afraid. On the other side, in the sky above Dark Knight City, where the energy was raging, Genshin's injuries were increasing. There were even several penetrating wounds that penetrated from his chest to his back. Under the joint attack of the 6 kings of Dark Knight City, his resistance was getting weaker and weaker. His life aura was also getting weaker and weaker. He was like a candle flame in the wind, about to be extinguished at any time. At this moment, all the warriors in Dark Knight City, whether it was the small group of warriors from the outside world or the many members of the Dark Star clan, were closely watching the fierce battle in the sky from afar. Look, the outsider can't hold on any longer. Humph, he dares to go against our Dark Star clan. Only death awaits him. That outsider must be tired of living. How dare he come to our Dark Knight City to make trouble? Death is not to be regretted. Such clamors came from all over Dark Knight City. The voices were not suppressed at all, and all of them were full of ridicule for the outsider. Within a large courtyard in Dark Knight City, a middle-aged man who seemed to be the master of the house stood with his hands behind his back. He said to the dozen or so cultivators who had come from the outside world, "You cultivators from the outside world have come to our Darkstar clan. All you need to do is obediently serve as slaves, and our Darkstar clan will naturally not mistreat you. However, if you dare to be impudent, look, this will be your fate." With that, the middle-aged man pointed at the distant sky arrogantly. Yes. Don't worry, caretaker. We won't forget our identities. We'll definitely do what we need to do, obediently. We won't cause any trouble for you. The cultivators from the outside world were not particularly powerful. The strongest among them was only an early overgod. They were all submissive when the middle-aged man scolded them. They did not dare to disobey him. Only after the middle-aged man had left did they dare to look into the distance. Sympathy and reluctance appeared on their faces, as well as some sorrow. This sorrow seemed to be something that would only appear when someone they knew passed away. A while later, the strongest overgod said, "Let's go. Let's get to work. We won't be able to interfere in a battle of that level with our strength." The cultivators from the outside world all seemed rather silent. In a foreign land, especially a world where the Darkstar race had oppressed them, they would feel a sense of closeness whenever they met someone from the outside world. Now that they saw their clansmen about to die in the battle against the Darkstar race, they all felt rather depressed. Once I become the Divine King, I'll definitely leave this godforsaken place. I don't want to stay here any longer, said a fat woman whose face was covered in scars. She had originally been a beautiful woman, but in order to better protect herself in the Darkstar race, she had no choice but to change herself into this appearance. At the same time, an old man sat in an inconspicuous restaurant in a corner of Dark Knight City as he drank. He was also a cultivator from the outside world. He was an early Divine King. Sigh, if the 100 Saint City was still around, our lives would be slightly better. However, ever since the city was destroyed, we no longer have any backing. The old man sighed as he sighed. The old man shook his head and sighed. There was some worry between his brows as he murmured, "Next time the city lord's estate actually wants me to kill a God King realm life sucking beast. Otherwise, I won't be able to live a good life. But how can a God King realm life sucking beast be killed so easily? It's just that the way out has been sealed up by the Darkstar clan. I can't leave even if I want to. Who knows how much longer I can remain here?" The old man suddenly looked in the direction of the battle in the distance. He also felt pity. If the 100 Saint City was still around, he definitely wouldn't have died. At the very least, he wouldn't have died in Dark Night City. But now, in the distance, a heavy sound suddenly rang out. The Heaven's Fist King had landed a punch on Jian Chen's chest from above, causing him to fall from the sky and sink deep into the ground. Sword cleaving yin and yang. The Battle Sword King struck out as well. He used a battle skill, and his sword became several dozen meters long. It fell from the sky with tremendous might as he prepared to kill Jianchen with a final strike. However, when the Battle Sword King's sword had only fallen halfway, the entire ground of Dark Night City suddenly shook. Afterwards, the powerful presence of a late divine king suddenly erupted. Ha ha ha! The 108 kings of Dark Night City are nothing more than that. Not only have they failed to kill me, but they've even assisted me in breaking through. Jianchen's voice rang out from underground as laws several times more powerful than before condensed in the air. Oh no! The expressions of the Battle Sword King, the Heaven Fist King, the Shadow King, the Gale King, the Proud Ice King, and the Earthshaker King all changed. Their expressions became somewhat solemn at this moment. He had actually broken through. They never thought that an outsider cultivator would actually break through at this critical moment. The Divine King was already so difficult to deal with when he was only at the mid-stage. Now that he had stepped into the late stage of the Divine King realm, it was even more unimaginable. At the same time in the Dark Night City, Lord's Manor, Bai Jin's expression abruptly changed, becoming incomparably solemn. Beside him, the expressions of the several Vice City lords and some of the upper echelons were also very unsightly. Whoosh! All of a sudden, an ear-piercing sound rang out. A gigantic axe surrounded by the laws of strength flew out from the ground with lightning speed, colliding with the long sword of Battle Sword King who was descending from the sky. Clang! The Battle Sword King's sword let out a crisp sound as it was sent flying like a flying stone. A small crack appeared on it. Sensing the existence of the crack, the Battle Sword King was astounded. Disbelief filled his face. This was because the grade of his sword was extremely high. Even though it was a Supreme Quality Saint artifact, it was a level higher than many Supreme Quality Saint artifacts. It could be considered a pseudo-god artifact. Even the City Lord of Dark Night City, Bai Jin, would not be able to leave a single mark on it. Yet now, the sword had actually cracked after taking a single strike from the axe. This made him feel extremely terrified. Jianchen shot into the sky like an arrow. He arrived before the Battle Sword King in an instant. The laws of power on his fist surged as he punched towards the Battle Sword King's chest. Regardless of whether it was the speed or the strength behind this punch, it was much, much stronger than before. Like a hot knife through butter, the fist tore through Sword King Battle Sword's protective sword chi, shattering the armor he was wearing and shattering Sword King's chest. Spurt! Battle Sword King opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale as he was sent flying. Jianchen did not show any mercy. He took the unrivaled Void Step and caught up to the Battle Sword King in just 2 steps. His fist turned into a palm and slammed down towards the Battle Sword King's head. Chapter 2793. Pa! With a crisp sound, the Sword King's head suddenly exploded, crushed by Jianchen's palm strike like a fragile watermelon. The Sword King, one of the 108 kings of Dark Night City, had died. Having reached late Divine King with the laws of strength, Jianchen seemed to have reached a whole new level. His battle prowess had increased by several times, and he was on a completely different level from before. Before his breakthrough, he even struggled to deal with the Proud Ice King, who was slightly weaker than the Sword King. Now that he had broken through, killing the stronger Sword King would not be too difficult for him at all. Of course, it was not entirely due to the increase in the laws of strength that he could achieve this. The main reason was because he had used the breakthrough as a disguise, using a sliver of the chaotic body's power. He had been paving the way for his ability to fight above his level of cultivation when he was a mid-divine king, leaving behind a deep impression in the hearts of everyone in Dark Knight City that he possessed extraordinary battle prowess. Now that he had broken through to late Divine King, his display of power was even more extraordinary, so it was fitting for him to clean up. The proud Ice King, Skyfist King, Earthshaker King, Gale King, and Shadow King were all stunned when they saw the Sword King's corpse fall from the sky. All of them stared at the lifeless Sword King in shock as disbelief filled their eyes. War Sword King has fallen. This is impossible. This is impossible. Proud Ice King was in a daze. War Sword King's strength was definitely much stronger than his own. But in the end, such a powerful War Sword King had fallen in a single exchange. This caused great waves to surge in his heart. For a moment, he simply couldn't accept this reality. How can an outsider break through to late Divine King from mid-Divine King to late Divine King be so much stronger? The proud Ice King could not understand, no matter how he thought about it. They were both late Divine King, so why would there be such a huge difference? Moreover, he was one of the more powerful late Divine King, one of the 108 kings of Dark Knight City. However, compared to the outsider who had just broken through, the 108 kings he was so proud of was actually so weak. The battle Sword King had fallen. This caused the proud Ice King, Earthshaker King, Skyfist King, Shadow King, and Gale King to stop. They could already tell that the battle Sword King couldn't even withstand a single strike from Genshin. Genshin's strength caused them to feel fear in their hearts. This person was simply undefeatable. However, they had stopped. Genshin was not going to show them any mercy. His eyes were fixed on Ao Bingwang, who was the weakest among them. Ao Bingwang was the first one to deal with him. Seeing that Genshin was looking at him, Ao Bing King's heart tightened. When he saw Genshin's cold eyes, which were filled with killing intent, Ao Bing King was so scared that his face changed. At this moment, he no longer had the dignity and arrogance of being one of the 108 kings. Similarly, he no longer had the arrogance he had when he first appeared. Instead, he was like a stray dog, fleeing towards the city, Lord's mansion, without any will to fight. Ao Bing King had seen how the Battle Sword King had fallen. Even someone as strong as the Battle Sword King could not withstand the combined attacks of the three kings. How would he dare to fight against Genshin? Genshin's eyes were cold. He did not heal his injuries. His body was covered in blood, and he looked like a grim reaper from hell. He took a step forward, and his body instantly slid a few hundred feet forward. At the same time, he threw out a punch. The surging law of power condensed in the void and punched towards Ao Bingwang. This punch seemed to have broken through the void, causing layers of ripples to appear in the void. The terrifying power contained in the punch seemed to have passed through the void, and from a distance, it directly struck the back of the proud Ice King, who had already fled thousands of feet away. Another muffled sound rang out as the terrifying power vibrated in the void. The armor on proud Binghuang's body was shattered. The law of force penetrated his body and instantly crushed his organs. Even a small part of his body was pulverized. The punch was just too powerful, so powerful that it was not something a body of flesh and blood could withstand. Even though the bodies of divine kings were no longer flesh and blood, they were as weak as tofu before Genshin's law of power after his breakthrough. Proud Ice King let out a muffled groan. His face instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper. His body fell down powerlessly like a kite with a broken string. Genshin moved. His burly body, which was covered in blood, shot out like a cannonball. He collided with the air and made a loud explosion. His speed was just too fast. He arrived in front of Ao Bingwang in an instant. Without any fancy moves, he raised his fist and punched Ao Bingwang's head with a simple punch. It was domineering and violent. No. Proud Ice King let out a roar of unwillingness. His despair was filled with unwillingness. He had just comprehended a divine level battle skill and secured his position as one of the 108 kings. What awaited him in the future was fame, respect, and glory. He was not willing to fall just like that. However, he was powerless to resist Jinshin's overbearing punch. Jinshin's punch landed and Ao Bingwang was dead. Only 2 breaths had passed since Jinshin broke through in the desperate situation. Yet Sword King and Ao Bingwang of the 108 Divine Kings of Anya City had died one after another. The speed of the 2 Divine Kings' deaths was so fast that many people in Anya City did not recover from their shock. It was only when Jinshin attacked the 3rd Divine King, Heavenly Fist King, that the martial artists who were watching the battle from afar came back to their senses. Immediately there was an uproar. The members of the Dark Star tribe were terrified. The deaths of the 2 Divine Kings made them sad and angry. At the same time, it made them feel as if the sky was falling down. A small number of martial artists from the outside world were excited. Their faces were filled with joy. In the Dark Star realm, all of them had to lower their voices and behave in a submissive manner. Normally, they would be bullied by the Dark Star race. Now that they saw their companions who came from the same world as them displaying their might in the Dark Star race and killing 2 great kings in such a clean manner, all of them felt extremely satisfied and carefree. The 108 Divine Kings of Anya City killed this person quickly. At the same time, Bai Jin's cold voice sounded from the city, Lord's residence. His firm and decisive tone revealed his determination to not give up until Jinshin was dead. Such a powerful martial artist from the outside world. Even if the Dark Star tribe had to use the entire city's power, they would still have to kill him. This was because this had far exceeded the bottom line of the Dark Star tribe that they could accept from the outside world. Without Bai Jin's command, the 108 Divine Kings hidden in various parts of Anya City had already begun to move. They flew out from various places. At the same time, the 36 Divine Kings of Anya City all appeared. Their auras were monstrous, and their killing intent was awe-inspiring. They all gathered in the city, Lord's residence. This person's strength is beyond our imagination. If we let the 108 Divine Kings deal with him, even if we win in the end, we will suffer heavy casualties. City Lord, the 36 of us should attack together. A young man from the 36 Divine Kings said. His expression was unprecedentedly solemn. Clearly, he had also observed the battle with his divine sense. Chapter 2794. The 36 lords had clearly witnessed how Jinshin had killed the proud Ice King and Sword King. His strength made even the guardians of Dark Night City fear him. Although the 36 lords were above the 108 kings in terms of both ranking and status, all of them knew that they were not much stronger than the 108 kings in terms of strength. There would never be a situation where the disparity in strength was so great that it would be impossible for them to crush the 108 kings. In fact, some of the 108 kings were not much weaker than them in terms of battle prowess. The Sword King, on the other hand, could barely be considered one of them due to his powerful attacks from the laws of the sword. If the Sword King, who was not much weaker than them, had fallen so quickly, the 36 lords would probably only be able to last a few more rounds. In other words, the strength of this outsider cultivator was enough to crush any one of the 36 lords. Bai Jin clearly understood this as well. After nodding slightly, he immediately gave the order for the remaining 108 kings to keep Jinshin busy, while the 36 lords immediately prepared to set up an encirclement of the encirclement. In the sky above Dark Night City, a total of 106 peak Divine King experts engaged in an intense battle with Jinshin. Deafening booms constantly rang out as powerful energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, forming violent shock waves that swept out in all directions. When the shock waves of energy reached the city below, large swathes of buildings collapsed. Countless ancient pavilions were reduced to ruins. The formations protecting these buildings were unable to withstand the violent shock waves at all. Dark Night City had fallen into chaos. Many Dark Star cultivators fled out of the city in panic. as if the end of the world had arrived. In a corner of Dark Night City, the divine king who had been drinking in a tavern earlier stood on the roof of the tavern. He held a flagon of alcohol in his hand as he stared at Jianchen, who was fighting the 108 kings in shock. Pata! The wine jug in his hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. The wine splashed out and soaked his cloth shoes. However, the old man was completely unaware of this. He only stared with a pair of old eyes, filled with shock as he stared into the distance. This person. Just who is this person? He's actually this powerful. Could it be that he's the successor of the Grand Exalt? From what he knew, probably only the successor of a Grand Exalt possessed such heaven-defying battle prowess, even though he had never seen the successor of a Grand Exalt before. At this time, a shocking explosion came from afar. One of the 108 kings of Dark Night City had used a god-tier battle skill, but it was shattered in mid-air. A powerful shockwave spread out from afar, pushing the old man's body back. Every step he took left a deep footprint in the ground. At this moment, the old man was at least 10 miles away from the battlefield. This battle has humiliated the Darkstar race. After this battle, the Darkstar race will probably target foreign cultivators like us even more. Dark Night City is not a place we can stay in for long, the old man hesitated. After a moment of internal struggle, he turned around and flew out of the city. On the other side, the battlefield rapidly approached the city, Lord's estate, with Jianchen at the center. His battle against the 108 kings had reached a white-hot stage. Both sides were extremely intense. The 108 kings of Dark Night City did not hold back at all against someone as powerful as Jianchen. They used everything they had. Various powerful secret techniques and god-tier battle skills shone with dazzling light in the sky, unleashing shocking power. At a time like this, they could no longer care about the city below. So what if the city was destroyed? All of them knew that killing Jianchen was their top priority right now. If they did not kill someone like him and allowed him to remain in the Darkstar race, the threat he posed to the Darkstar race would be far too great. Jianchen became more and more courageous as the battle progressed. The laws of strength coiled around the huge axe in his hands. Every swing was heavy and powerful, causing the air to explode. Every swing was able to send a powerful king flying. None of the 108 kings of Dark Night City could receive a single swing from him. If it were not for the fact that the 108 kings were all keeping him busy, preventing him from attacking the same person a second time, they probably would have suffered heavy casualties long ago. Damn it, if the Proud Ice King and the Battle Sword King were still alive, they would never have let this outsider live until now. Now that the Proud Ice King and the Battle Sword King are dead, our million formations can't be formed. Otherwise, killing this person would be as easy as crushing an ant. The 108 kings who were fighting Jianchen all roared out furiously. Many of them had been sent flying by Jianchen's axe. This made them feel extremely vexed despite their lofty statuses. Arg! At this moment, a miserable cry rang out. The supreme quality saint artifact spear in one of the king's hands had been cleaved in half by Jianchen's axe. The axe did not slow down at all, landing on the king's chest with supreme force. However, his miserable cry only lasted for an instant before it came to a halt. The laws of strength had penetrated his body and directly pulverized his soul. He was dead. The third king had fallen. Destruction's Spear King. In the surroundings, many kings cried out. 3 kings directly launched a sneak attack from behind Jianchen. The 3 supreme quality saint artifacts all radiated with powerful pulses of energy, stabbing towards Jianchen's head and heart. Jianchen's axe moved with him. He suddenly turned around, and the axe in his hand drew a semicircle in the air, colliding with the 3 supreme quality saint artifacts. He did not move at all, while the 3 kings were constantly pushed back by the powerful force. However, just as Jianchen pushed back the 3 kings, a sword silently appeared behind him like a venomous snake. It stabbed out with lightning-like speed, and a figure could vaguely be seen flashing behind him. This was the Umber King's attack. He had transformed into a blur, concealing his presence as he launched a sudden attack. Jian Chen sneered. He did not even turn around. Instead, he grabbed the sword behind him and swung down with his axe. Spurt! The Shadow King did not manage to dodge the axe. His body was split into two halves, and his primordial spirit did not manage to escape either. The fourth king had fallen. After the Dark Shadow King, more and more kings fell one after another. The seventh king, the eighth king, the ninth king, the 13th king. In a short period of time, 20 kings had fallen one after another. With so many kings falling, the remaining kings all felt a chill run down their spines, and their eyes were filled with fear. This martial artist from the outside world was too strong. He was so strong that he was abnormal. After fighting for so long, many kings were already thinking of retreating. The 36 Lord's encirclement formation had not been formed yet. Suddenly, the entire sky lit up. A powerful sword light shot out from the city, Lord's mansion, like a bolt of lightning. It flashed between heaven and earth, and instantly arrived in front of Jianchen. The sharp sword intent swept across heaven and earth, forming an invisible prison that trapped Jianchen within. It had the power to change the world with one strike. Chapter 2795. Jianchen's eyes suddenly narrowed as he was enveloped by Baijin's sword. He immediately fixed his gaze on Baijin and became surprised. His laws of the sword had already reached the level of sword immortals, and he had comprehended the ultimate way of the sword as well. So his understanding of the laws of the sword had reached an extremely profound level. As a result, as soon as Baijin struck out, Jianchen understood the laws of the sword extremely clearly. He understood all of Baijin's strength. He could not help but think of a supreme divine king called Zhu when he had met in the Azure Poseidon Palace. Zhu Wen was an extremely renowned divine king in the Saints' world. He was so powerful that he ranked second on the divine king rankings, only second to Aoyama. As a divine king, he possessed battle prowess that was no weaker than a first heavenly layer infinite prime. The strength Baijin had displayed right now was even greater than Zhu Wen's in the Azure Poseidon Palace. Only Aoyama, who ranked first on the divine king rankings, could surpass Baijin. Baijin's actions made the kings who surrounded Jianchen relax. Many of them secretly let out a sigh of relief. They all backed away subconsciously, leaving enough space for Baijin and Jianchen. In the eyes of the kings, Baijin's strength could only be described as unfathomable. Whether it was the kings or the 36 rulers, they all obeyed Baijin obediently. They basically listened to everything he said. No one dared to challenge Baijin. The city lord's comprehension of the laws of the sword seems to have increased again. It looks like the city lord is very close to the primordial realm. The city lord is only a step away from the primordial realm. As a matter of fact, he's already half a step away. Many of the kings were secretly surprised when they sensed the might of Baijin's attack. However, they also understood that even if Baijin truly was half a step away from the primordial realm, he was not truly at the primordial realm. Completely crossing this threshold would be extremely difficult. It would be thousands of times more difficult than the cultivators of the outside world. Boom! Suddenly, an earth-shaking rumble interrupted everyone's thoughts. Immediately, a powerful energy storm swept over, causing the bodies of the 108 kings to sway uncontrollably. Jianchen's axe had already collided with Baijin's sword. The sharp sword qi clashed with the laws of strength on the axe. Jianchen's laws of strength finally showed signs of defeat, completely dispersed by Baijin's sword qi. Meanwhile, Baijin's entire right arm was numb. His hand, which was holding the sword, was throbbing with pain. However, in the next moment, he erupted with a surging streak of light. The streak of light was so powerful that it reached several thousand meters into the sky. From afar, it seemed like a huge sword that hung in the sky, shining with endless light. Afterwards, it directly slashed down towards Jianchen. Immediately, the pressure of the surroundings flooded over. The streak of light that was several thousand meters long seemed to slice the surroundings apart. Bai Jin's strike possessed the power of a first heavenly layer infinite prime. Jianchen seemed to be greatly threatened. He roared out furiously, and his body swelled up. The laws of strength in the surroundings gathered over madly. Afterwards, he threw his axe into the sky with all his strength. Boom! With a great sound, the axe that Jianchen had thrown exploded loudly when it approached Bai Jin's streak of light. Bai Jin's attack, that was equivalent to a first heavenly layer infinite prime, rapidly weakened under the storm of energy from the explosion. However, the explosion of a supreme quality saint artifact was still unable to completely nullify the attack. The remaining streak of light landed on Jianchen's head, leaving behind a thin, bloody mark on his forehead. Of course, Jianchen had purposefully left this mark on himself. Or perhaps it should be said that he had used the sword chi from the ultimate way of the sword on Bai Jin's mark. Otherwise, with the toughness of his chaotic body, even second heavenly layer infinite primes would not be able to break through his defenses, let alone first heavenly layer infinite primes. With a flip of his hand, another axe appeared in Jianchen's hand. Although it was different in shape from before, it was still a supreme quality saint artifact. He had collected many space rings from the Two-World Mountain, and he had obtained quite a few supreme quality saint artifacts. There were 5 or 6 axe-type supreme quality saint artifacts, so he did not have to worry about not having enough saint artifacts to use. However, just when he was about to continue attacking Bai Jin, his face suddenly changed. He had already sensed that the encirclement formation of the 36 Lords was ready. It was about to turn into a powerful killing formation. There are 144 spiritual veins beneath Dark Night City. The encirclement formation of the 36 Lords actually resonates with the 36 spiritual veins, creating a resonance of energy. With the two combined, the encirclement formation is powerful enough to easily kill first heavenly layer infinite primes. Jianchen could see through everything with the senses of his soul. Whether it was the 100 Kings formation that Bai Jin and the others discussed in the City Lord's estate or the encirclement formation, none of it escaped his ears. However, the power of the encirclement formation made him frown. Although the formation was no different from child's play in his eyes, he was currently acting as a late divine king. The strength he displayed when he could fight Bai Jin was already impressive enough. If the encirclement formation that could even kill primordial realm experts was unable to do anything to him, then it would be a little too much. The encirclement formation will be complete in a few seconds. I need to end this quickly, Jianchen thought. He stared at the space ring in Bai Jin's hand. In the next moment, his presence rapidly weakened. The frailness on his face became heavier and heavier. Even a faint flame appeared on his burly body. The flame seemed to be the flames of life. As the flame burned brighter and brighter, his presence became weaker and weaker. In exchange, he developed an even more powerful and terrifying presence. Oh no, he's using a powerful secret technique at the cost of damaging himself. Everyone be careful. Don't let him escape at a time like this, a king among the 108 kings called out. Immediately, all the kings moved out, guarding the various directions. They all knew that the encirclement formation was about to be completed. They could not let this outsider escape at a time like this. The city lord of Anya City, Bai Jin, was emotionless. His sword trembled, forming a net that enveloped Jianchen. He had already made up his mind. Whether this outsider risked his life or fled, he had to keep him here. He could not let him leave the range of the encirclement formation. There's only 2 seconds left before the encirclement formation is complete. This time, you're dead for sure, thought Bai Jin. However, as soon as Bai Jin thought of that, his expression changed drastically. An unprecedented feeling of danger suddenly filled his heart. Before him, a huge axe was slashing towards him with monstrous might. Dao, severing, sword technique. Bai Jin reacted quickly as well. With a roar, he unleashed a god-tier battle skill, sending out a shocking sword chi that clashed with the axe, creating a loud boom. However, it was still not enough. The axe cleaved through Bai Jin's god-tier battle skill, and the remaining power slashed towards Bai Jin's right hand, severing his entire right arm. Bai Jin let out a muffled groan as he looked at his right arm that was falling from the sky. His eyes were filled with anxiety because his right arm was still wearing an interspatial ring. He could not afford to lose this ring. Just when he was about to grab his severed right arm, Jianqin suddenly appeared. He grabbed Bai Jin's severed right arm and retreated without any hesitation. Chapter 2796. The 108 kings around were startled. They subconsciously looked at Bai Jin's severed right arm with a touch of horror in their eyes. But immediately they realized the consequences of losing Bai Jin's space ring. This suddenly made all of their faces change. At this moment, it was not just Bai Jin. The remaining 108 kings, as well as the 36 lords who were nearing the end of the encirclement, all became extremely ugly. Their faces were filled with anxiety and panic. They knew too well how precious Bai Jin's space ring was. It was not because of the resources inside, but because the drop of divine beast blood essence distributed by Darkstar the Great was inside. This drop of divine beast blood essence was an important thing related to the success rate of the grand ritual. It could not be lost. Otherwise, once the grand ritual was affected, they would become sinners of the entire clan. If it really came to that point, their own deaths would instead be a trivial matter because their families and even their relatives would restrain themselves from being implicated. In short, losing the divine beast blood essence. The consequences would be very serious. Stop him. Quickly stop his path. Don't let this person leave Dark Night City. At this moment, all the 108 kings panicked. The few deputy city lords and some higher-ups who were still stationed in the city lord's mansion also panicked. Everyone flew out of the city lord's mansion and chased after Jianqin at the fastest speed. The voice of the deputy city lord, Blood Hangman, came from afar. All divine king of Dark Night City, listen to my order. Stop this person. If anyone disobeys, kill without mercy. Blood Hangman directly issued a death order, using his authority as the deputy city lord to order the entire city. As soon as his order came out, some of the divine king of Dark Night City who did not know the inside story were stunned. Many people wondered if their ears had misheard. Wasn't it just dealing with an outer realm martial artist? Although this outer realm martial artist was very strong, was there a need to mobilize so many people? Not only did he want all divine king of the city to attack, but he also wanted to kill them without mercy? We, the divine king, are existences with a certain status in the tribe. Although this Blood Hangman is the deputy city lord, when did the deputy city lord have such great authority to directly control our life and death? That's right, we didn't do anything wrong. Not to mention Blood Hangman. Even the city lord Bai Jin doesn't have the authority to control our life and death. What does Blood Hangman think he is? The Blood Hangman's words immediately provoked the dissatisfaction of many divine king. Each and every one of them felt indignant and resentful towards the Blood Hangman. Even so, many divine kings still soared into the sky, exuding powerful auras as they fearlessly flew towards Jianqin. Formation, open. At the same time, the 36 sovereigns' expressions were incomparably solemn. With a shout, they activated the encirclement formation in half a breath's time. Their faces rapidly paled, and some of them even vomited blood. They had suffered quite the backlash from activating the encirclement formation prematurely. Extremely powerful pulses of energy suddenly appeared from the depths of Dark Night City. A tremendous amount of energy surged out from the 36 spiritual veins hidden underground, forming 36 huge, pillars of energy that shot into the sky. They fused with the 36 sovereigns who had cast down the encirclement formation. It seemed like every single one of the 36 sovereigns was enveloped by a huge pillar of energy. They were like gods that had descended upon the mortal world. They seemed like divine beings. Afterwards, a huge barrier of energy rapidly descended from the sky with the 36 sovereigns at the center, enveloping the entire city. The space in the region enveloped by the barrier of energy seemed to rapidly freeze up. The abundant origin energy seemed to have frozen up as well. The barrier of energy seemed to possess a mysterious power. Wherever it passed by, everything froze up. Jianchen could tell with a single glance that the barrier of energy was powerful. Its defenses were so great that even first heavenly layer infinite primes would struggle to smash through it. Moreover, he knew that the barrier of energy was only the beginning of the encirclement formation. As the encirclement formation continued to evolve, even more powerful killing formations would appear later on. Not only could the formation trap first heavenly layer infinite primes, but it could also kill them. The huge barrier of energy descended extremely quickly, enveloping the entire city. Although Jianchen was flying out of the city, he was still within its range. Moreover, many god kings from the Darkstar clan had appeared before him, blocking his path. However, after breaking through, even the 108 Divine King would struggle to endure a single strike from Jianchen, let alone these regular Divine Kings. He swung his axe wildly, sending all the god kings flying. A large number of high-quality saint artifacts were shattered by a single swing of his axe, shooting out as shards. Battle cries shook the surroundings. Shuai had gathered all the divine kings in the city to stop Jianchen, but they were unable to affect Jianchen. They could not even slow him down at all. This was because the difference in strength was just too great. Faster! Faster! Seeing how Jianchen was getting closer and closer to the entrance, the city lord, Baijin, could not help but panic. He roared at the 36 sovereigns in the formation. The 36 sovereigns panicked as well. However, they were unable to move in the encirclement formation. All they could do was remain where they were and control the formation, doing their best to increase the speed at which the barrier descended. However, all their efforts were destined to be wasted, as they were not facing a true late divine king. Instead, they were facing a primordial realm expert who had been hiding his strength the entire time. Jianchen moved faster and faster. Just when the energy barrier was about to seal up the entire city, his speed suddenly skyrocketed. His burly body caused the air to explode as he shot through the air like a bolt of lightning. He basically brushed past the falling energy barrier as he charged out of the city. Baijin, the city lord of Anya City, was filled with hatred. Just a little bit more, and he would have been able to stop the cultivators from the outside world. However, there was nothing he could do, since the encirclement array could only be used within the city. It required the help of the spiritual veins deep underground to support the operation of the array. Chase! Baijin gritted his teeth. He led the 108 kings in pursuit of Jianchen. Behind him, the 36 sovereigns were filled with regret and reluctance as well. They dispelled the formation helplessly and chased after Baijin. Shuai and the other vice city lords did not stand by idly either. They mobilized the divine king of their race in the city, leading a large group of divine king experts out of the city. Immediately, large groups of divine king experts left Dark Night City. They left 7 or 8 floors of the city, causing Dark Night City's strength to plummet to an unprecedented level. Many cultivators in the city were stunned by this sight. They stared at the black mass of people in the sky as they were unable to return to their senses for quite some time. After leaving Dark Night City, Jianchen shot off with lightning speed towards Two World Mountain. Baijin's space ring had already ended up in his hands. However, when he sent the senses of his soul into the space ring and found Siyu's essence blood that was tainted with the presence of the Darkstar clan, His face immediately became cold. Chapter 2797. On the way between Dark Knight City and Two World Mountain, there was a shocking scene of a chase. A burly man covered in blood was running for his life with a huge axe on his shoulder. He spat out blood from time to time, and his life force was very weak. He looked like he was severely injured and could not hold on for much longer. Behind him were several thousand divine kings of the Darkstar race in hot pursuit. All of them erupted with their presences as killing intent surged into the sky. When they gathered together, their presence was earth-shaking. It was an extremely grand sight. All the cultivators and Darkstar who saw this became dumbfounded. They were utterly shocked. Heavens, what's going on? So many divine kings of our race are actually pursuing a cultivator who seems to have come from the outside world. This is just too crazy, Mostham. The person at the very front seems to be the city lord of Dark Knight City. He's one of the most powerful divine kings below the primordial realm in our race. But I think someone has severed his arm. This is huge. This is definitely huge. One of the invincible divine kings of the Darkstar race, the city lord of Dark Knight City, by Jean, has his arm severed. Look at how he's leading so many divine kings in pursuit of that cultivator from the outside world. Is that cultivator the one who severed the city lord's arm? How is that possible? The city lord of Anya City is basically invincible among god kings. Only the city lords of other cities can contend against city lord by Jean. Is the person who severed city lord by Jin's arm a primordial realm expert? Although the Dark Knight City was the closest city to the Two World Mountain, it was still quite a distance away from the Two World Mountain. Naturally, they would meet many warriors along the way, including many warriors from the outside world and the Darkstar clan. This caused quite a stir. At the same time, the matter of the city lord of Dark Knight City leading several thousand divine kings in pursuit of a cultivator from the outside world spread like wildfire. It spread from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. Very soon, it reached the nearby cities and caused a great uproar. Naturally, no one believed the rumor in the beginning. The invincible strength of the 36 city lords of the Darkstar race had already been deeply ingrained into everyone's minds. Even though they were divine kings, they were still invincible divine kings. There was no cultivator from the outside world who could make them personally take action, let alone the fact that a city lord had led several thousand divine kings in pursuit of a single person. However, the scene just happened to be recorded by a few Darkstar clansmen using something similar to a memory crystal. When they saw the city lord by Jin's severed arm appear in a lifelike manner, and when they saw the several thousand god kings aggressively chasing down a cultivator from the outside world, they could not help but believe the rumor that seemed like something out of a fairy tale. The cities that received the news were immediately shaken. Afterwards, the news spread to the other cities through teleportation formations at an even faster rate. News of what had happened in Dark Knight City was quickly spreading to the entire Darkstar race. On the other side, Jianqin fled towards Two World Mountain in a panic. Behind him, the city lord of Dark Knight City, by Jean, the 108 kings, the 36 lords, and the many divine kings formed a long line in the sky. They pursued Jianqin closely. City Lord, this person keeps burning his essence blood at the cost of his own life. He's already at the end of his rope. He won't be able to last much longer. We will definitely take back the space ring. The several Vice City lords of Dark Knight City fell behind by Jean. They looked at Jianqin, who had clearly slowed down and could not help but speak. Bai Jin nodded. He could also see that the fleeing cultivator from the outside world was getting slower and slower. His aura was also getting weaker and weaker. He naturally understood what this meant. It meant that the other party would not be able to last much longer. However, just as the distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer, Jianqin suddenly let out a low cry. He seemed to have used some kind of secret technique. His burly body suddenly withered as if he was squeezing out the last of his potential and life. His originally slow speed actually sped up. God damn it. Baijin could not help but curse when he saw this. He was both anxious and resentful. They were getting closer and closer to the Two-World Mountain. The suppression from the Two-World Mountain was just too great. Once the people of the Dark Star race entered the Two-World Mountain, even if they were at the peak of the Divine King realm, they would only be able to unleash the strength of a mid-Divine King. We have to stop him before he enters the Two-World Mountain. Baijin gritted his teeth as he gritted his teeth. Baijin's face paled as he spoke through gritted teeth. The Vice City Lords, 36 Lords, and 108 Kings behind him all nodded as well. They all stared at Jianqin. However, they were still unable to catch up to Jianqin in the end. Jianqin's heavily injured body, which had become as thin as a thread of life, burrowed into the mist of the Two-World Mountain and gradually disappeared into the distance. We're in big trouble. He actually managed to escape into the Two-World Mountain. Outside the Two-World Mountain, Si Wuqing's face became extremely ugly. The Two-World Mountain had always been a forbidden area for the Dark Star race. They could not set foot there easily. All of them were extremely fearful of the Two-World Mountain. Baijin hovered in the air as he stared at the Two-World Mountain, shrouded in mist. He said with a deep voice, "There's no need to worry too much." He must be running out of energy to be able to make it to the Two-World Mountain. He no longer possesses the battle prowess of his peak condition. As long as we catch up to him, killing him will be a piece of cake. Let's go. Enter the Two-World Mountain with me. With that, Baijin led the way into the Two-World Mountain and entered the mist. As soon as Jianqin entered the Two-World Mountain, he immediately slowed down. Only after traveling several dozen kilometers did he stop. Afterwards, his exhaustion vanished. His pale face rapidly became ruddy again. He was brimming with energy and vigor. He did not seem like someone who was heavily injured at all. His body shook slightly, and the bloodstains on his body were all shaken off, revealing his bronze skin. He still maintained the image of a tall and sturdy man, but the wounds on his body had disappeared without a trace. Not even a single scar was left behind. Let alone a scar, there was not even the slightest mark. A few seconds later, Baijin and the others arrived with lightning speed. They finally appeared before Jianqin. However, when they saw Jianqin's current appearance, all of their faces changed drastically. They were filled with disbelief. "Why you?" Baijin's eyes widened as he stared at the unscathed Jianqin. Even with his shrewdness, he was rendered speechless by this scene. He began to speak incoherently. Jianqin stared at the space ring in his hand. With a wave of his finger, the essence blood of a divine beast flew out. He looked at the essence blood that had already condensed, and a sliver of sorrow appeared on his face. He murmured, "Originally, I had no grievances with your Darkstar clan. Originally, I never wanted to have anything to do with your Darkstar clan, but you just happened to touch someone you shouldn't have, forcing me to make some choices. Who are you? Are you a primordial realm expert?" The city lord struggled to suppress his shock. He could tell with a single glance that the person before him was a cultivator from the outside world. A primordial realm expert from the outside world had entered the Darkstar world. Baijin's heart churned as he struggled to remain calm. However, even though he was extremely shocked, he still secretly communicated with the person at the back of the group. He had to report the arrival of a primordial realm expert as soon as possible. Even the late Divine King found it difficult to tolerate the Darkstar clan, let alone a primordial realm expert.